Apocalyptic Black Technology System. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126 Doubtful. Before Boss Jang got a pass for Su Ran found Yuan Lichen first. The news came from a local snake in the 4th district. Su Ran and the other party were friends in the previous life, but in this life, this friendship has fermented and shined. Su Ran initially offered half a piece of soft china to let the other party lead the way, but the local snake just shook his head repeatedly. No, the whole city is looking for them now. If people know that I have something to do with them, then I will be finished. At least only 2 soft Chinese can make me take such a big risk. 2 soft Chinese. Why don't you grab them? Su Ran rolled up his sleeves and forcibly punched the land snake. Wrapped in the dark energy armor, he punched down and made a clear fist mark on the wall beside the land snake. Half-packed soft china is gone. Are you leading the way? That's right. The friendship between the two of them in their previous life was not that good. The local snake looked tremblingly at a fist mark sunken in the wall over there. He knew very well that as long as Su Ran broke his 2 ribs, he would not die immediately. But in this era, death is nothing. The difference? Don't be angry, brother, I'm just kidding. 2 soft Chinese, isn't that robbery? I'll show you the way. I'll show you the way. Are you here to hunt down their awakened ones? Let me tell you, I have nothing to do with the goddamn Yuan Lichen. I just took his money to do things for him. After all, if a channel dealer like me sells other people's information to the authorities everywhere, then I don't want to be confused. Actually, I really want to report him too. Brother, if you don't come today, I may find a third party to report to them tomorrow. These sons of bitches dare to collude with aliens. Su Ran didn't say a word and let the other party lead the way. Yuan Lichen and the others were hiding in a dilapidated and unremarkable residential building. After confirming that Su Ran had come, Yuan Lichen came out to greet him in person. After seeing each other for a few days, the engineer from Bureau 8 was quite tired. Su Ran, it's great that you didn't die. Su Ran said, well, tell me what's going on first. How are our people? Are they all okay? The snake in the back was dumbfounded when he saw this scene. Didn't the ferocious awakened person come to trouble Yuan Lichen? Did it? The series of flattery that I just had just slapped the bull's hoof. The ground snake's face turned green immediately, but Su Ran just glanced at him. Take him under control. In the room, a familiar Lin Yuandong subordinate came out and was in charge of taking over the local snake. On the other hand, Yuan Lichen led Su Ran into the dimly lit back room. Li Yilan and Xin Yu were all there, as was Lin Yuandong, but his younger brother was missing. A few more people, and the experts brought by Su Ran before were all gone. Li Yilan was wearing a set of dark energy armor. Yuan Lichen waited for Su Ran to scan the audience before he said in a deep voice, Su Ran, although the new capital appears to be stagnant, in fact, it is on the verge of destruction. Yuan Lichen is not a person who likes to exaggerate. If he said that, something really went wrong. Yuan Lichen and Su Ran sat down and began to talk about the situation these days. After the attack that day, we hid in the transport plane. We were almost discovered by migratory locusts, but at that time, those insects that were searching were suddenly recalled and followed the sky mother carrying the thunderstorm cloud. The nest advanced some distance rapidly, and this allowed us to escape. Yuan Lichen speculated. It was 5:58 in the afternoon. I think they might have found you at that time, right? As he spoke, he looked at Su Ran, as if he wanted to confirm something from Su Ran. Su Ran just shook her head. It was true that for a while, the sphere monster found him, and then he entered that weird village, but this memory was chaotic and frequent. At that time, he was chased and injured again, so he had almost no idea about the specific time concept. Yuan Lichen continued with some disappointment. After that, we waited for a while before setting off again, but we are not very good at driving your transport plane. It took a while, and it was close to 2300 hours on the night of the 18th before we arrived in Zhenjingcheng. At that time, everything was normal, and Zhenjingcheng immediately accepted us. Although our 2 transport planes and a large number of weapons were incorporated, but it also left us a pair of dark energy armor and arranged a good place for us. This is faster than I imagined. Compared with myself, Li Yilan and the others are luckier. Su Ran vomited in his heart, and then asked in doubt, then how did you become the wanted criminals from the guests in the army? The abnormality started after team leader Chen and the others arrived in Xinjiang. After we arrived in Xinjiang, we briefly talked about the situation in Bingcheng. In the afternoon, Batches of escaped survivors from Bingchang were ushered in. I'm not too sure about the specific situation. I only know that Commander Chen and the others suffered heavy losses. Many soldiers and survivors died, and then there was an infected person. The news about that infected person was blocked very much strict. In a few words, it is said that it was caused by bugs, that is, the alien invasion that is now making a lot of noise. Then, the situation became weird. First, Captain Chen and the others were quarantined out urgently, and then it was Zhang who had been comforting us before. Lieutenant Colonel Yue suddenly turned his back on him, saying that we were all infected and were puppets of the Zerg race. If they wanted to catch us, if Major General Li hadn't arranged in advance, we would have died long ago, but we have also become the wanted criminals now, and not only that, I heard that many military and government officials have disappeared. More than half of the top floor of the new capital disappeared, and I don't know where they went. I can't confirm this, but from the night of the 19th to today, we did contact a lot of Major General Li and his subordinates again. Then, some people spread the rumors about aliens and infected people, but the military's move to this was to divide the isolation area, from the 1st district to the 5th district, and catch some so-called infected people everywhere. It is said that the temporary military region and the government district are no exception. I have seen them arrest people once, and I am sure those people are definitely not infected, and it's strange that they captured and killed so many infected people, but the news about aliens infiltrating the new capital has not decreased but increased, and I think someone is emphasizing the idea of aliens content. Su Ran glanced at him and said, "Why are you so sure that those caught are not infected?" Yuan Lichen remained calm and said, "Because my lover is an infected person." Chapter 127 Analyzing Emperor N number 039. S perfect theory. Su Ran gasped, not knowing that this gentle engineer had such a past. Yuan Lichen said, "Do you have any clues? I thought at first that the military wanted to embezzle your technology, but they don't need to be so urgent. After all, no one knows your life or death, and there is no benefit to attacking us in advance." Su Ran said, "What do you think?" "I think it may be that a big earthquake occurred in the top-level structure of the new capital." Yuan Lichen said, "The top-level situation in the new capital has always been very complicated. The government, the military, and the factions that are entangled with each other before the end of the world, there were some differences in ideas. Moreover, it is said that this time, regarding the fugitives from Bingchang and your destroyer, Mr. Su, the new capital city was divided into two factions. I think, Mr. Su, you may be an alien. After all, judging from the situation at the time, if Mr. Su's destroyer can reach the new capital smoothly, it may bring unimaginable changes to the entire new capital." Speaking of this, Yuan Lichen took an extra look at Su Ran, and said in his heart, "To be honest, sometimes I also think that you who can produce so much black technology are alien creatures." Su Ran coughed dryly, but nodded. Having said that, he understood what Yuan Lichen meant. The turmoil in the new capital city this time was probably due to power strife at the top. Those who mysteriously disappeared and those who were labeled as infected were dealt with. Those who lost were probably the losers in this strife, and the fugitive from Bingchang and Su Ran, a suspected alien creature, became the opportunity for this turmoil or the fuse. In this way, it can also explain why this kind of thing did not happen in the previous life, and because of this special period, in order to maintain the stability of the new capital, this time the turmoil only happened at the upper level, and it started to end quickly. Because it was limited to a certain range, although the impact was great, it was difficult for wind to come out. The only rumors are also covered up by infected people and aliens. This is also a normal way to keep up with the apocalyptic style and cover up real events. Moreover, as an experienced person, Su Ran has also heard about the conflicts in the upper echelons of the new capital. However, in his previous life, he was too rubbish. He didn't know the specific situation, but he could at least confirm that the turmoil in the upper echelons is indeed possible occurring. Yuan Lichen seemed to have guessed about this a long time ago. Seeing Su Ran pondering, he continued, "And judging from the current situation, the winner should be the side that thinks Mr. Su, you are suspected of being an alien?" Cough. "Therefore, we, Captain Chen and the others who have contact with you have received special care." "Well, I'm just talking about the facts, and I don't mean to blame you. I'm your subordinate at this time," Lin Yuandong, who is always listening, said. "As the saying goes, if there is an answer that can correctly explain all the unknown questions, then this answer must be the correct answer." What Yuan Lichen said was clear to most of the people present, so they didn't deliberately avoid anyone. However, Lin Yuan's words made the serious atmosphere in the field a bit weird. Yuan Licheng opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something. But Behu was successfully interrupted by Lin Yuan's words could not find him. Instead, Su Ran had other thoughts. What Lin Yuan said is very reasonable. Yuan Licheng's inference can explain almost all the problems in front of him. The so-called pointing at himself seems to be his own worrying too much, but this is all speculation. If Su Ran remembers correctly, Lin Yuan seems to have conclusively regarded himself as a businessman in the last days. Thinking of this level, Su Ran became a little unconfident about this guess that was almost conclusively concluded by him. He thought for a while and said, Chen Dongliang should know more. I will confirm with him later. If it is only the upper level, if it's turbulent, then it's easy to handle. When Su Ran said these words, everyone in the field couldn't believe their ears. Yuan Licheng looked at Su Ran in surprise. Judging from the current situation, the one in charge of the new capital is probably not the faction that regards Su Ran as an alien. That is to say, they can be said to be rats crossing the street in the new capital. The ruling class is the enemy. Lin Yuan also thought of this level, but he analyzed it to a deeper level. Su Ran's tone of voice was too relaxed and casual, right? Could it be that Su Ran still has a big eye like a destroyer? Can the entire new capital be subdued by force? If Su Ran knew what Lin Yuan was thinking at this moment, he would definitely praise him earnestly. Analyst Lin, you finally guessed right. However, Lin Yuan didn't need Su Ran's praise. When he guessed this, he immediately felt that this idea was very reliable, and he was very excited. So many black technologies? It can also absorb bugs. Isn't it really an alien creature? Non-Zerg aliens. This possibility seems to be able to explain all the unknown problems. Lin Yuan was deeply trapped in his own theoretical and logical vicious circle, unable to extricate himself. Su Ran still felt that something was wrong, since in political strife, the victorious party relies on the infected person to quickly deal with the alien party. Why is it necessary to distinguish the concept of infected person from aliens? Make it known to everyone. Su Ran felt this point from the conversations of the security check female staff member, Li Xin, and some passers-by. Moreover, given the current situation in the new capital city, even if the upper echelons are in turmoil, they will definitely strive for stability and never want to affect the morale of the army and the people. After all, resistance to insects is the most important thing. No matter who is in power, he does not want to see the destruction of the new capital city. If it is really stable, why is the atmosphere of white terror in the new capital still so strong? No, there is definitely something wrong. Su Ran had a feeling that she had grasped something, but it was hard to be sure. It felt like he had inexplicably lost the memory of 2 days before, chaotic and eerie. But there are no ghosts in this world, let alone strange powers. Behind all unknown phenomena and situations, there must be clear and reasonable explanations. It's just that there may be some answers that humans don't know. Su Ran was convinced that that was the case in that weird village, and the current situation in the new capital city is not as good as that in that village. In any case, Su Ran must set things right as soon as possible, and prepare for the fight against the Sky Brood that may turn its guns around at any time. Su Ran simply rested here for a few hours, and exchanged a lot of his recent situation with Yuan Licheng and the others. When the agreed time for handing over the pass was reached, Su Ran immediately left for Dili KTV. Chapter 128. He Chen is seriously ill. Boss Jiang's efficiency was as high as Su Ran remembered, and he was very reliable. When Su Ran took the one-time temporary pass from him, Zhang Peng, who was slightly bloated, reminded him meaningfully, "Brother Su, be careful." Su Ran's heart moved, and she asked back, "You know me?" But this time, Zhang Peng didn't say a word, and said after a while, "I've already taken a big risk, and I don't know more about it." Su Ran didn't forget that Boss Zhang had a military background, but when the other party talked about it to this point, Su Ran only took a deep look at him, turned his head and walked out. Zhang Peng is cautious. He can't tell clearly. It should not be a lie, but he deliberately didn't understand it in order to avoid some kind of risk. And through these words, Su Ran also confirmed his previous guess that Boss Zhang was so willing to help. He must have been instructed by someone. Some people hope that they can find He Chen and Yuan Licheng. Su Ran's eyes narrowed dangerously. No matter what, he had to find Captain Chen first. Chen Dongliang and Yi Kijin are people who can be trusted by Su Ran for the time being. If something really happens to the upper echelons of the new capital, then the chess move he arranged for Qiao Xiangjin before will be meaningless and may even bring risks instead. It's better to take the initiative by yourself. In fact, Su Ran didn't want to care about these miscellaneous things. When he finally figured out the situation, he decided to subdue it by force. His target was still the Sky Brood in the wilderness. The Sky Brood doesn't know when it will turn to kill. Su-Ran has no time to play a game of power with some powerful and local forces here. The area of the new isolation area is not large. It was originally an old building area on the edge. It was not a very good place in the new capital before, and now it is simply divided into Chen Donglian and the others with a pass in hand. It didn't take much time or effort for Su-Ran to come in. A tight barbed wire fence was erected around the perimeter of the isolation area, and there were many soldiers and weapons outside, enclosing the isolation area like a prison. But the situation in the quarantine area is even worse than Su-Ran imagined. The military did not provide much necessary supplies and assistance. The streets and alleys are full of ragged, dying, and distressed Bingchang people. The stench, everyone's eyes revealed a look of despair and silence. Many faces were familiar to Su-Ran. They were all seen in the Ice City. They were still full of hope for the future, and some of them even warmly called Mr. Su with Su-Ran. This is not quite right. Even if it's a struggle from the top, why are these apparently innocent ordinary survivors being treated like this? Given the current situation, no one could act like this, unless they were fools. But would the person who controls the survivor base in the new capital be a fool? Su-Ran covered her face and walked through the new isolation area. An accident happened here. Someone actually wanted to snatch Su-Ran. Su-Ran didn't expect this place to look like this, and he didn't change his clothes on purpose before he came here. In his life, jackets and sweatpants were the most inconspicuous survivor's outfits in Xinjiang City, but here, he can wear them all at once. It can be seen that he entered the quarantine area from the outside, and thus became one of these survivors whose eyes were already reddened by hunger and disease. However, the robbery quickly turned into a misunderstanding after being led into the stinky alley by those three skinny boys. Su-Ran took off her mask and lifted her hood to reveal her face. How many of these survivors who fled from the Ice City didn't know Su-Ran? Worst ever seen by far, someone said in surprise at the first moment. Mr. Su, these three people were very excited. Mr. Su, you are still alive, help us. Mr. Su, we are starving to death. Mr. Su, you are finally back. I knew Captain Chen was right, you will not die. Hearing these words, Su-Ran's ears turned red. It felt as if I had become an incompetent savior. But the question is, what kind of savior is he? Su-Ran calmed down their emotions, shared a piece of white rabbit toffee each, and said in a deep voice, Head Chen, Company Commander Yi, where are they now? This question silenced the three people who were very excited. After a while, someone said, Company Commander Yi has disappeared. Commander Chen is seriously ill. Since the day before yesterday, no one has seen him, and, Mr. Su, I think you'd better not go to see Commander Chen. Why? Before he fell ill, Commander Chen kept saying that you would never die like that. After he came here, he kept advocating searching for you. Later, after we were quarantined, he became very weird, saying that if Mr. Su you come back, no matter who sees you first, don't let you see him. The alley was cold and the light was dim. When the man said these words, his expression was terrified, his tone was very low, and Su-Ran felt a little horrified when he heard it. How do you know he said that? The man then said, we all know that this news was passed down from Captain Chen layer by layer. As long as there are survivors in our Ice City, everyone knows about it. This was passed down by him before he fell ill. The last message the head of Chen said so, which meant that there was a huge danger around Chen Donglian. This is to remind Su-Ran of danger. However, although Su-Ran never said anything to Chen Tuanzang, but Chen Tuanzang vaguely knew that Su-Ran still had more cutting-edge and powerful technology and force. If the danger came from the new capital, Chen Donglian must be aware of it. Su-Ran can undoubtedly have the effect of calming the sea, so why did Chen Donglian remind himself of the danger? Want to stay away from him? And Yi Kijin, why did he disappear too? Did they join the struggle in Xinjiang and become victims? No, it's impossible. You can't follow Lin Yuandong's theory. If it's not power struggle, if these disappeared people, if they are not dead, then why did they suddenly disappear? Is it possible that they are hiding from something? Su-Ran suddenly thought of something and asked, I heard that you suffered heavy losses during the retreat on the 18th. Do you know anything strange happened during the retreat? Those three people looked at each other in a daze, and after looking at each other for a long time, one of them suddenly remembered something. Yes. Su-Ran, yes. But I am not the one who witnessed it. At that time, everyone dispersed and retreated. Later, I heard someone say that Stake Long, their fleeing team, encountered a very strange village. All the people who entered the village disappeared, and no one came out. Only a few timid people who had never entered before ran out. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129 Creepy. In the north in July, it is also scorching hot summer. The temperature is not low, and the humidity rises at night, but after hearing these words, Su-ran felt a chill rising from the soles of his feet, making him cold all over. One thing after another seemed to be connected in series in his mind in an instant. Weird village conscious invasion, someone who disappeared to avoid something, the difference in the use of words between aliens and infected, and why did Captain Chen tell everyone with such fanfare, don't let Su-ran come looking for you? At that time, when he bumped into that village, he was not invaded because of the system. Without the system, he might have turned into some kind of walking dead, but others are different. It is very possible that Steak Master and the others also entered that village, but they were not recruited. The people who escaped were not alive at all, but were parasitized by something, which is the so-called invasion of consciousness. Su-ran didn't know what the concept of consciousness invasion meant, and preferred to use parasitic control to understand it. For example, he almost drank a cup of tea that had no tea in one gulp. Immediately afterwards, those people who escaped from that weird village came to the new capital. The infected refer to the brain-dead humans infected by the Zerg virus. Aliens are not Zerg, they are not infected at all, but this kind of weird consciousness invasion, or in other words, the cause of this consciousness invasion is another alien creature other than Zerg. Some people deliberately spread news about aliens, just to remind the whole city that in the new capital, there is a second type of alien creature besides Zerg that has quietly invaded, and those who can have such great energy must be the upper-level figures in the new capital. But the other party has not notified through official channels. Why is this? It is very possible that the top leadership of the new capital has been parasitized on a large scale. If he is an alien creature with such weird means to invade human beings, if he can control all human beings at once, he will definitely start with a leadership first. Because of this, many people who could not find a way to fight disappeared. For the disappearance here, some people may really die, or some people may turn from bright to dark, such as the person who spread the news of aliens. These people are big figures in the new capital, and there are serious problems in the upper level structure. But they can still rely on the middle and lower levels to mediate with them. However, in this case, they may still have strength, but it is difficult to make a move easily. Once they make a move, if the problem cannot be solved in one go, they may be the next one to be invaded. Moreover, a large number of high-level officials in the new capital city were invaded by aliens. Creatures replaced it, and the news really spread. The last time Su-ran saw the weirdness of consciousness invasion and pheromones, if he didn't handle it properly, he would become a real or fake monkey king. Only the real one knows whether he's real or fake. Knowing that they are fake, there is no way to tell the difference. Moreover, which subordinate really dares to raise a knife to kill his own leader? Was invaded by aliens just based on one sentence. At that time, you won't even be able to tell whether the person you killed is good or bad. How to set things right. Even if the people below have not been invaded, it is impossible to make a correct judgment in the lunatic asylum. People who are not crazy and people who are crazy say they are not crazy. Who can know who is really crazy? And Su-ran still had doubts in his heart. Why didn't this happen in the previous life? Why did this weird alien creature come out of a village? There is another problem. The time when Su-ran crashed and the time when Captain Chen and the others retreated almost overlapped, and the direction where Su-ran crashed was the direction of the worm sky brood. Come here, how could you bump into that weird village? Thinking of this level, Su-ran felt that everything was unknown and weird, and suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of horror. She felt creepy, as if she had stepped into a crazy ghost town. He even wanted to turn around and run away, withdraw from Xinjiang, and retreat directly to Kyoto. But no, absolutely not. It's not time to set things right anyway. If the new capital really becomes a ghost city, no one will be able to stop such unknown alien creatures that can invade others at that time. He still has to face these things, unless he is now flying to the universe in a flying saucer. Su-ran took a deep breath, stabilized his mood, and said, "Okay, I know the situation. Who can you contact? The current officer? I'm talking about the platoon leader." "What is the squad leader? Platoon leader, or sergeant chief?" Some type of one of them hesitated for a moment, and said, "I know a logistics quartermaster." He said he is a class cadre, Does this count? Su Ran first asked if this person had entered that weird village or had contact with relevant people, and after getting a negative answer, he asked the 3 people to take him to meet the quartermaster. Su Ran had entered and come out of that weird village before. Although he had no memory, he felt that this strange unknown alien creature might recognize him, so he didn't dare to take too many risks. Moreover, since there is a problem at the upper level, the current intelligence network is likely to be established based on the lower level. The more inconspicuous the person, the more likely it is for Su Ran to contact the person he is really looking for. On the way, Su Ran noticed that the legs of these 3 people were a little weak when walking, and she couldn't help sighing. They are all like this, and they dare to come out to rob. They are really hungry, but Su Ran didn't say anything. He had a lot of food on him, but he couldn't help everyone, and in the current situation, he didn't dare to do that. And he wasn't a saint who wanted to save everyone. What is more important now is to quickly stabilize the situation in the new capital and deal with those unknown alien creatures. Otherwise, the new capital city may be heading for extinction in advance. Su Ran's judgment was not wrong. The quartermaster was just a link in a network of relationships hidden under the new capital. Su Ran followed him to meet several people, and only then saw a man in a small dark building. The so-called key person. When he entered this building, Su Ran was swept over his head with a weird device. What surprised Su Ran was that he knew the key person. That's Chen Ling, a researcher I haven't seen for a long time. Su Ran said, "Why are you here? Are you still in the quarantine area?" Chen Ling only smiled slightly. "Long time no see, Comrade Su from the Joint Human Defense Agency. It's really great to see you." This greeting didn't mean to be teasing. This girl still believed in the identity Su Ran told him at that time. On the contrary, Su Ran felt a little embarrassed. Only then did Chen Ling say, "The most dangerous place is the safest place. You are really cautious enough. If you really go to head Chen, you will be in trouble." This sentence made Su Ran's face blush again. You must know that when he guessed that the new capital city might be in turmoil due to internal power disputes, he never thought of pulling out land killers to settle the matter. He still deserves this compliment. Su Ran laughed dryly and said, "Well, I know, it's because of consciousness invasion, right?" Chen Ling didn't show much surprise, and said, "The invasion of consciousness comes from an unknown, microscopic alien creature. We call them advanced virus spore life. I guess you must know them, because they are looking for you." Chapter 130. Su Ran didn't say a word, didn't show any surprise, and didn't say that he might be the first person who encountered this virus spore, but said vaguely, "I've heard of some from my organization. It is an extremely dangerous thing that can induce other people's judgment and behavior through pheromones." Chen Ling glanced at him, and said strangely, Pheromones? Our current observations have not found that they are secreting such things in large quantities. It seems that your information seems a little inaccurate." Su Ran was a little depressed. "I almost spent my life trying to find out the information. Why is it not accurate? What went wrong?" But he didn't say that. But listen to Chen Ling. "Chen Ling Dao, I don't know how much you know, so I will introduce everything to you first. After checking with our other party, the origin of the matter should be the escapees from the ice city. Among them, a stake leader led a group of hundreds of escapees into a place that had never appeared on any map or positioning system. The village encountered this advanced virus spore life. This is what our team calls it. Its intelligence should not be lower than that of humans, but their life forms are extremely strange. Their attainments in the biological nervous system are thousands of years ahead of our human creation. Their invasion methods are not you. The guessed pheromones are not the kind of disgusting bugs that parasitize the human brain in science fiction films. They seem to be very advanced. They are similar to virus invasion. A single spore is a unit and enters the human body. After that, it goes straight to the brainstem, uses the human body itself as a nutrient, and begins to multiply in a large area. The dense hyphae will gradually erode the original human brain neural network, like a huge colony, in the human body. The brain is formed step by step, but in fact, it is actually forming a brand new brain," Su Ran said. "In other words, they are not parasites. After entering the human body, another brain grows in the human brain." Su Ran suddenly remembered an absurd saying that had been circulated a long time ago, saying that human beings are actually a kind of parasite. The brain is the parasite, and the body is the main body. Survive for a while without any external sustenance, but the body dies, and if the brain is not properly disposed of in time, it will die soon. Thinking of this, Su Ran only felt her scalp go numb, but he suddenly remembered why Chen Ling knew so much. He remembered that Chen Ling told himself before that she was a researcher in biology, and now it is normal for her to go to Xinjiang to study this thing. That's right. Chen-Ling-Dao. Moreover, the most peculiar thing is that the second brain formed by them is completely attached to the original brain. The neural network is basically anthropomorphic, and only the most critical part of the nervous system is retained. This saves a lot of space, and we believe that, just like this, it solves the problem of human rejection, and also completely realizes the control of the human brain, as well as the inheritance of memory. Hearing this, Su Ran's color changed slightly. Memory inheritance. This is like a fantasy. However, at this time Su Ran suddenly realized that if he didn't inherit the memory, the establishment of the real and fake sun monkey that he had considered earlier would not be tenable at all. If these advanced virus spores cannot have memory, they are essentially no different from the infected person, and it is impossible to hide themselves. This is the ability that the infected person does not have. Compared with real humans, the infected person is stiff and slow, impossible to hide. This is the real scary thing about it. With memory and intelligence no lower than that of humans, once they successfully parasitize, they can survive like normal humans without being discovered by anyone. Chen-Ling-Dao, I don't know how they do it, but the memories they can read should have a time limit, and they shouldn't be able to recall things that are too long and too detailed. They are like we use a USB flash drive to read the memories of the humans parasitized by them, like the archives in them. This is the pinnacle of the neuroscience field. They are extremely advanced races in the biological field, and the Zerg race is also an explorer in this field, but compared with them, they are still behind by thousands of years. However, fortunately, they have no army or battleship. When they first invaded the new capital, there should only be a few individuals, which is very miserable. No matter how advanced the biological race is, there are also flaws that have to be avoided. That is, biological its own flaws. Although they have dealt a devastating blow to the upper middle level structure of the new capital, they are not invaders like the Zerg, but more like a group of fleeing famines in distress. They are extremely weak. The number of breeding bases that first arrived in the new capital may not more than 10, otherwise, with their biological technology, they should be able to turn the new capital city into a ghost city overnight, and create their invincible biological army within a month. Su Ran was silent. He doesn't want to talk much. Chen Ling continued. On the 18th, the first day was pretty normal. It should be the slow development period of this spore. It is very smart. When the number of reproductions is limited, it only needs to reproduce in one individual first. If it succeeds, it will grow a nervous system for its thinking and judgment, and it will be able to quickly transfer their spores to the upper layers of the new capital through observation and contact, through one level, and capture higher level individuals and human beings to become theirs. A gust of wind, a sneeze, a brief physical contact can help it spread. Then, the horrific changes began at noon on the 19th. A researcher from our Institute of Biology was the first to discover an abnormality and urgently isolated the survivors of the Ice City, but it was too late. Violent turmoil occurred, and overnight, a huge change occurred in the upper layers of the new capital. Sorry, because of my level, I don't know the specific situation. I only know that after that night, these spore parasites completely grasped. They rely on this method of proliferation and parasitism to rapidly expand their influence to the middle and lower levels, and turn all suspicious and influential people into their own. The real killing and shocking only occurs at the top. In the few small circles in the city, it started to end quickly. In the new capital, there was almost no news, and because there was almost no way to prevent it in the early stage, even if many people knew that now the people who controlled the new capital had become a group of strange life forms. Monsters can only hide and disappear. Otherwise they will stay in the current top-level circle full of demons and ghosts, and sooner or later they will become one of them. Su Ran's gaze sank slightly, as if he could imagine such a scene. Sitting on a high-level conference table, suddenly, rows of high-level military officials and government officials stood up expressionlessly, drew their guns and shot at each other. Kill colleagues who have absolute trust in them. There was blood, and corpses fell to the ground in astonishment. Everywhere more spores spread like a plague, turning all those who have doubts about this great change into one of them, thus achieving unprecedented unity and no objection. This is tougher and more effective than any kind of coup, Su Ran said. That is to say, the military and political circles of the new capital are like a big tree full of holes eaten by parasites. We can't take tough measures, because there will be a lot of real people, human beings, die. We can't send people to carefully identify and contact them one by one, because when the people we send find the parasites, they are likely to be parasitized on the spot, and may even infiltrate us in reverse. Chen Ling was slightly taken aback, but Su Ran suddenly realized the key and the problem, nodded. That's right. Chapter 131 Dawn in number 039, Tell the Truth. July 22nd at 7:11 p.m. The sky outside has completely darkened, and there is no light inside the building, making it even more gloomy. After listening to Chen Ling's words, Su Ran cleared up a lot of doubts, but he wanted to say something more. Well, I see. Tomorrow I will go to space in a flying saucer. This is really a house leak coincident with continuous night rain. He had planned to fight against the Sky Brood with Xinjiang, but after only a few days, when he came, he found that Xinjiang was almost finished, and it was going to become a ghost town. Su Ran sighed and said, okay, this situation is bad enough, but I think, if you are a scientific researcher, you are waiting for me here. It shouldn't be for the sake of your acquaintances. Tell me about the situation. Chen Ling smiled slightly. I can appear here, of course, because we have known each other before, but this is not accidental. As I said, under this turmoil, some people disappeared, and they also have a lot of energy. Su Ran thought for a while, and tentatively read a sentence. For example, Major General Li. Chen Ling blinked, nodded, and said, that's right, I'm sorry, he didn't see you, because he thought you might be an alien too. Su Ran nodded her head, thinking, long time no see, miss, your personality has not changed. Su Ran spread her hands. I am not an alien, of course. I have no documents to prove that I am not an alien, nor can I prove that I am not parasitized. Chen Ling smiled. I believe you are not an alien, and I just confirmed that you are not parasitized. Su Ran suddenly remembered the strange device that swept her head when she entered the door, and asked, have you found a way to distinguish the parasites? That's right. Although the weight of the brain of the parasite will be 1.3 times that of a normal person, we can't twist everyone's head off to test. Chen Ling made a joke that wasn't funny, but we found another way. The intensity of the brain waves of the parasites far exceeds that of humans, and they will produce certain feedbacks in special frequency bands. They seem to be using a special magnetic field to affect the brain waves to communicate. Therefore, starting from this method, we can judge parasite success rate. Well, haven't really tested it. As for where this information is coming from, we caught 2 samples 2 days ago when the change was first made, and we had a dozen people for it infected in 2 days. Hundreds of people died for it, but fortunately we got extremely important data. When Su Ran heard this, she suddenly felt emotional. Sometimes, systems and black technology do not mean absolute power, and people with enough experience in technology are needed to bring them to the extreme. It seems that a group of scientific research teams will have to be recruited in the future. Stop the thought here, because now is obviously not the time to think about it. Of course, Su Ran is aware of the risks Chen Ling mentioned. Those advanced virus spore life forms replace the leadership of Xinjiang, which is equivalent to controlling the entire Xinjiang. They can dispatch troops at will, and whoever is infected will be infected. As long as it is not too ostentatious and too much to attract too many people's notice, after a while, they will have the entire new capital as their own, so they don't need to pay attention to anything. Seeing that Su Ran did not speak, Chen Ling said, also, it is worth mentioning that although it is extremely powerful in terms of biotechnology, it seems to be the same as the Zerg. It does not have the 7th sense, that is, the perception of the level of dark energy. Therefore, judging from the current situation, no awakened person has been parasitized by them. Of course, our data is not universal, and its reproduction speed is very fast. On the first day, it can be confirmed that the parasitized there were only about 100 people, and the next day there were more than 500 people. Today, in the new capital, at least 3,000 people have become living puppets of this advanced virus spore life. Of course, although this reproduction rate is exaggerated, there are as many human beings in the new capital. They can only control some important people point to point, saving themselves every breeding. Su Ran glanced at Chen Ling. I always felt that this girl wanted to say something but didn't get to the point. After thinking about it, she said, So, we must take action as soon as possible. Chen Ling, I am mainly explaining the situation to you today. After all, there are many people who know these things secretly now, and I also want to confirm whether you are an alien, and then introduce you to Li Ji. You have unparalleled hope among the people of Bingchen, and he wants to know the organization behind you. Li Ji, that Major General Li, and, are all the organizations I made up out of my head already so famous? Su Ran said, he definitely didn't say that when he asked you to come. If I didn't know you, I might have slapped the table and left right now. Chen Ling thought for a while, and said frankly, actually, Li Ji didn't send me here, because I thought you should help and wanted to introduce you to him. Su Ran Seldom tell the truth in the future, Chenling Dao? Well, what I mean is that Li Ji still attaches great importance to you, and there are several high-level officials, Minister Jin. However, no one knows whether you are dead or alive. Your destroyer crashed again, but you are still here. I left a contact person, because I was born in Bingcheng and knew you again, so I was already a contact person before, but I didn't expect that you were not only alive, but also came so quickly. Okay, it is understandable, although what he said seems to be inappropriate, but Chenling is indeed taking care of her emotions very carefully. Su Ran sighed and said, thank you for your hard work. As a key protection personnel, you still have to pay attention to me. No, the underground of the isolation area is our laboratory. Chenling explained very seriously. Besides, the laboratory here was planned to be abandoned before, so the spore life that is busy stabilizing the overall situation is still there. No search came here, and I think that they still maintain the existence of the quarantine area, not only to continue the rumors that there are infected people in the city, but also to do something with it. Su Ran's heart sank. They are looking for me. Chenling didn't know that Su Ran had encountered with these spore life forms before, and he didn't think it was normal for such a group of alien life forms to take interest in Su Ran. A powerful extraterrestrial civilization attaches great importance to a human being, no matter how you look at it. It looks like a bridge that only exists in movies. Even a very weak and powerful extraterrestrial civilization is unlikely to hold on to a slightly special human being. Su Ran then asked a little nervously, do you know the situation of Commander Chen? It is said that he is ill. It's not sick. Chenling finally sensed the worry and tension in Su Ran's question this time. She wanted to say he might be dead already, but after a pause, she said, Head Chen, he also became those spores. The purpose of life? Chapter 132. Minister Kim. In fact, Su Ran was already prepared for this. Hearing this answer, his heart sank. He didn't have much contact with Chen Donglian. He couldn't make up for 3 days. He was working hard to evacuate the survivors. Although he had speculations about Su Ran's strangeness, he never crossed the threshold. Everything was working hard to bring the survivors to Xinjiang. However, he completed his mission. He became a puppet, and at the last moment, he was still thinking of sending a reminder to himself. Su Ran clenched her fist slightly. He took 2 deep breaths. It was rare for Chenling to notice this subtle change in Su Ran. She glanced at Su Ran, remained silent for a moment, and joked, aren't you wondering if I've been parasitized? The joke failed so badly that there was silence. Fortunately, Su Ran quickly adjusted her mood. Then he asked, where's your Kijin? Do you know him? I asked all the way before, but no one knew where he went this time. Chenling just shook her head blankly. She is just a scientific researcher and doesn't know much more than Su Ran. But Su Ran was suspicious. Yi Kijin, such a living person, did he just disappear from the world like this? And those people who followed Yi Kijin and himself at that time, why are they gone? Immediately afterwards, Chenling took Su Ran to meet another unit in the underground network of the new capital, and Chenling herself went back to the laboratory. She still had her own work to do. However, Su Ran learned that she had the approval of her superiors for talking so much to herself. The process of tossing and turning was more complicated than Su Ran imagined. Level by level, he left the new division within just 1 hour, turned around 2 large areas, and finally found himself in an inconspicuous building in the government area. He stopped in the meeting room of the small building at that time. The person who took him was a staff member named Li Changzhao. He glanced at Su Ran and showed a polite and decent smile. Sorry, our Minister Jin still has something to do. I'm afraid you have to wait for a while. Su Ran nodded, expressing her understanding. Confidential personnel are always busier than they appear. The staff member smiled slightly, poured Su Ran a cup of tea, and was about to go out. Su Ran thought for a while, and said, I still hope that Minister Jin can be as soon as possible. He should know the current situation better than me. I think we should take countermeasures as soon as possible to kill all the alien species. Li Shangzhao smiled very politely and left. Then, after waiting for about 10 minutes, Su Ran stood up because he realized that allowing him to wait here for 10 minutes proves that Minister Kim doesn't value him. As Chenling revealed when he comforted himself, the military thinks that losing the destroyer and being beaten by the Sky Brood is fucked. Su Ran itself no longer has much value. If we continue to wait like this, we may not be able to wait for anyone for 2 hours. Su Ran strode out of the meeting room directly, and began to open the doors one by one. Starting from the 2nd floor where he was located, he went all the way up, opened the doors of each room, and then probed inside and asked, is Section Chief Jin there? There are several staff members in each room. All of them are afraid of the life of spores. Seeing Su Ran's reckless appearance, they are all shocked. Li Changzhou rushed over after hearing the news, scared to death, and said, "Mr. Su, what are you doing? Although we are all reliable people here, but the current situation, if those alien spore lives are disturbed, then we will all it's over." Su Ran ignored him at all, and continued to open the doors one by one, which disturbed half of the building. Only now did Li Changzhou look like I was about to cry and said, okay, Mr. Su, I'll take you to see Minister Jin right now, don't be like this." At this moment, Su Ran stopped and asked Li Changzhou to take him to the so-called Minister Jin. What made Su Ran speechless was that Section Chief Jin was not on this building at all, but in the basement of a small building in a former community adjacent to the military area with 2 streets each. Li Changzhou walked in front with a sad face. While Su Ran said, "It's 2 streets away, you asked me to wait there, how long will I have to wait?" Li Changzhou said, "Isn't this for safety? And Minister Jin has been in meetings, so I really don't have time to see you." Su Ran hummed twice, but declined to comment before bringing Su Ran here. Li Changzhou had urgently contacted Minister Jin. This time he didn't keep Su Ran waiting, and saw the old minister who looked to be in his 60s on the ground floor downstairs. The other party's name was Jin Xian. Although his face had already been filled with ruts, it was hard to conceal the air unique to him who had been in power for many years, and his eyes seemed to contain a more radiant brilliance than that of a young man. When Su Ran walked in, he stood up, shook hands with Su Ran, introduced himself briefly, and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Su, for keeping you waiting for too long." Speaking of this, he paused slightly, and said, "I think Xiao Chen has already introduced the situation to you. We don't have any requirements for you. Mr. Su, you have done enough for Big Chen. I hope you can stabilize the Ice City survivors and your people in the new isolation area. Also, I want to know what kind of organization is the Human Joint Defense Agency you mentioned? Like Ice City, you take it out, will you still be able to provide those weapons and equipment, even destroyers, in the future? I don't mean to test it. Now is the moment of human survival. If the organization behind you really has such capabilities, I hope to fully participate in the war on Earth." Jin Xian had never heard of the United Human Defense Agency, but from what he had learned during this period of time, he had no choice but to believe in the existence of this organization. Otherwise, in the files that can be viewed, Su Ran is just an ordinary person. Before the apocalypse broke out, he was just an ordinary employee. How could he come up with so many incredible black technologies? Moreover, it is said that during the Ice City War, the huge destroyer ship appeared out of thin air, and many people saw it, which means that there is probably some kind of space teleportation technology behind Su Ran, which can send such a large spaceship to the city in an instant to the battlefield. There must be a huge organization behind it to be able to do this. Even if he has never heard of it, Jin Xian must consider that the United Human Defense Agency may really exist. It can be provided in the future, but it will take time, and it won't be free. Su Ran didn't answer this question directly, but said vaguely, "And, I can help you now." Chapter 133 Su Ran and number 039, S Determination. Hearing what Su Ran said, Jin Xian's eyes lit up, and he was not in a hurry to delve into the matter of the United Human Defense Agency, but said in a deep voice, "Do you have a way to deal with the spore life? Can you send a large number of them? What kind of weaponry? Or something to prevent the intrusion of this consciousness?" After all, although it is important to study the mysterious organization behind Su Ran, things also have priorities. If the chaos in the new capital is not resolved in advance, they will all become puppets. However, what is the significance of the origin of the United Human Defense Agency behind it? Su Ran was a little strange. Send weapons and equipment, where did I get the teleportation skills from? Have you always misunderstood something? But Su Ran had thought about Jin Xian's question. With his current system level, under the 3rd level manufacturing list, it seems that there are really people who can guard against this kind of spore invasion. For example, the biochemical combat spacesuit is a tight-fitting body made for space combat. The internal circulation oxygen supply system can cut off almost 100% material exchange with the outside world. It also carries a rocket injector, which is an artifact for space operations, but this set costs 30 resource points, not to mention, it will take time to manufacture it. When Su Ran really produces a large number of combat uniforms, it is estimated that these combat uniforms will be useless and there are antivirus weapons. Su Ran has also considered this point, but he doesn't know what kind of antiseptic is effective for these spores. Moreover, Chenling's researcher did not provide a way to solve the current problem by poisoning and killing insects, which proves that this method is obvious. Not very feasible. Think about it with the back of your head. This kind of spore life cannot be poisoned by insecticide spray. However, seeing Su Ran lost in thought, Jin Xiaoyun's heart moved slightly. Look at this. This Mr. Su from the Ice City really has a way to resist the invasion? Who is the organization behind him? Jin Xiaoyun has read Su Ran's information. He is an ordinary person, and his ancestors have been ordinary people for 8 generations. How did such an ordinary person hide from everyone in the information advanced internet age and become a member of a powerful and mysterious organization? That's right, with the technology demonstrated by that organization. Is it still difficult to forge a person's identity? Jin Xiaoyun instantly had expectations for Su Ran, but the next moment, Su Ran pierced Minister Jin's thoughts with his own hands. He shook his head. No, none of my solutions can be realized in a short while. Based on the situation in the new capital I saw, we must act immediately, and we cannot wait for a moment. Otherwise, even if the spore life does not exist, the new capital will become a ghost city. Once the Sky Mother Nest turns and kills us, internal and external troubles, we will be destroyed as well. Su Ran's idea now is to attack quickly, which may seem reckless, but judging from the situation, thousands of people have turned into walking dead in 3 days, and the number of spore life is increasing exponentially now that the scientific research department has found a way to distinguish the parasite. It should immediately pull up a group of fully awakened teams, and overnight, Thunder will act to quickly set things right. Jin Xiaoyun saw through Su Ran's thoughts at a glance. He sighed and said, Mr. Su, I know what you think. The method is very simple and the reason is also very simple. If we don't do anything for a moment, they will become stronger. The new capital is getting weaker and weaker, but now is not the time. You don't know the system of our country. Those spore life controls the top leadership, which means that most of the military forces in the entire new capital are under their control. No matter how fast we move, at least we have to face a huge modern army. The number of awakened people we can organize now is still impossible to match an army. Moreover, everyone is in one system. If we dispatch a large number of people in our hands, we will definitely leak the news, so now is not the time. Su Ran said, you want to transfer troops from the 2 military bases outside. As soon as this remark came out, Jin Xiaoyun's face suddenly changed, but he reacted quickly and immediately returned to normal, saying, how do you know? Of course he was asking about the military base. In the eyes of many survivors, the fact that the new capital is here and the military is here means that a lot of military resources are here, but Su Ran knew that within Xinjiang province, there were still 2 hidden large military bases, with a large number of advanced weapons and equipment, soldiers, and scientific research personnel. That is the last strength of the military, and it is also the key technical supporter for Chenling and the others to complete the research on spore life so quickly. However, the locations of these 2 military bases are tightly sealed. Before the apocalypse, it was normally kept secret. After the apocalypse, there is no need to announce it to the public, and not many people know about it. As for why Su Ran knew, in the last life, the new capital city was breached in the end. Where are the secrets of these 2 military bases? Su Ran just shook her head, and said as it should be, of course I know. However, it is actually the same to deploy troops in this way. It is just to use the situation to suppress it. It is impossible for human beings to beat themselves up to clean up the new capital, right? The final problem is to find and kill all the spore life parasites. If a massacre is really going to happen, Su Ran can show the coming now, of course. In that way, it will be the sky brood. The current Xinjiang city is like an old tree full of parasites. Finding out all the parasites is a difficult problem. What is even more difficult is how to find out the parasites without destroying the foundation of this big tree's survival. Is this also the intelligence of the organization behind Su Ran? Jin Xiaoyun frowned slightly, showing a thoughtful look, and said, Mr. Su, I understand your feelings, but this is the safest way, and your destroyer has crashed. I hope you can cooperate with us, stabilize the survivors of the Ice City, and at the same time ensure your own safety. You have successfully killed the Ice City, and now the situation in the new capital city can be left to us to deal with. Time is tight, every second counts. I hope you can understand this is the bureaucratic expulsion order. Su Ran understands that this Minister Jin doesn't want to talk with him, a member of the mysterious organization who has no military power, and thinks it's a waste of time to talk to him like this normally. It would be impossible for a person like Minister Jin to interrupt a conversation in this way, but firstly, he was indeed a little disappointed and felt that Su Ran was of little use for the time being. Secondly, as a person from the orthodox system, he actually dislikes this kind of secret organization hidden under the world. Su Ran took a deep breath and realized that she could no longer be so polite. Chapter 134. It in number 039, S not what you think, it in number 039, S what I think. Jin Seon had the caring eyes of an elder looking at a younger generation, and said, "You have worked hard, Mr. Su, Xinjiang Chang will be your home." Before he could finish his polite words, Su Ran said first, "We can't wait any longer." Jin Seon frowned slightly. "You are." It stands to reason that since he had said all these words just now, Li Changzhou outside should have come in to help him chase away the guests. It seemed that a meeting was between two people, but in fact, someone outside had been monitoring the situation inside. Once Su Ran showed any abnormal or extreme behavior, someone would rush in to stop him immediately. However, why hasn't anyone come in yet? Moreover, although Jin Seon talked a lot with Su Ran, in fact, he has always avoided the important and ignored the obvious. He did not trust this Mr. Su who came from the Ice City. Of course Su Ran is aware of this, so he has always been very polite. Of course, the most important thing is that he actually doesn't know how to deal with such high-level officials, but at this time, he didn't want to go on like this anymore. He was not going to follow the opponent's rules, but to follow his own rules, a little more direct and reckless. Maybe not so bad. What he wanted was a quick resolution to the problem. Su Ran said, "I have a plan. I hope you can listen to it." Minister Jin smiled and said, "You can talk about it, but I want to remind you that although we have been shaken, there are still many experienced people in a complete system. Your plan has a 90% possibility success is something we've mastered." Su Ran nodded. "I know, but as far as I can see, although your method is very safe, it will take too long, and even if you can kill all the spore life in the end, the new capital city does not know how many people will die. My idea is very simple. It is to first test whether the awakened ones can resist the invasion of spore life. If they can, then organize a group of special combat teams mainly composed of awakened ones to decapitate them. The original high-level solution of parasites, and then, the awakened ones will replace you to lead a new revolution, clarify the facts within the military and the government, block each region one by one, search for the parasites comprehensively, and reduce them on a large scale. The number is to reduce their reproduction speed, and it may take 2 to 3 days for such a circle, but it is enough to solve the situation with a thunderbolt." I heard Su Ran say this. Jin Seon couldn't help but shook his head and laughed, and said, "That's right, Mr. Su, I admit that this is the correct approach, but the risk involved is too great. What if the awakened ones are not immune to their invasion? Besides, you hear there is an extremely fatal loophole, that is, now they can mobilize our own army to attack us, a team of awakened ones, we can organize. In fact, I can clearly tell you, we now have a lurking army in our hands, the 36-member awakened team, but they are not an army. As soon as they move, those shell-expelling spore lives that are against the leaders of the army, the government, and even my leader will first mobilize the army to stop it. When the time comes, we will probably be beaten to death by our own people before we can initiate a change. So, before that, we have to make military transfers from the military bases outside the new capital, as well as do ideological work for the middle and lower rank officers. This is the best policy. Moreover, they are also higher life forms. We are wondering if there is a peaceful solution to the problem. If we can get their help, our technology will be improved unprecedentedly, and we will have the possibility of resisting the insect swarm. Su Ran shook her head. "I can solve these two problems for you." Jin Seon felt that Su Ran was a fantasy, and said, "How can you solve it for me?" Su Ran said in a deep voice, "First of all, whether the awakened one can resist the invasion, I will test it for you." Jin Seon was taken aback, and said, "You are an awakened person? Are you going to try your best? Mr. Su, you must not be impulsive." Of course Su Ran is not an awakened person now, but after a few hours, his dark energy potion is successfully produced, and he will have the dark energy perception trait of an awakened person. Moreover, of course he can't die. Su Ran is not that great with a system in place. Even if the awakened person's traits cannot resist the invasion of spore life, his system cannot allow his host to be parasitized by humans. What is the face of the system? Isn't the system in that village just a shot? Su Ran only smiled slightly, and said to herself, "Don't worry, there is no problem." Then, the second question is about the army. If you can ensure that your awakened ones move fast enough and hide deep enough, I can help you temporarily contain the army. Jin Seon said, "How do you contain the army?" Su Ran said, "Because if my guess is correct, I am one of the targets of the spore life." This sentence made Jin Seon fall into deep thought. He seemed to think of something, and asked tentatively, "Why? How can you be sure that their target is really you?" Su Ran smiled and said, "Keep an eye on Yuan Licheng and the others. I don't know if you know, they are all my people, and they are all my people, and they are not letting go of the fugitives from Bingchang who are not harmful to the overall situation. I don't need to say more. As for how to confirm, you can send someone to check. Someone must be looking for me secretly in the new capital now." The reason why Su Ran said that was, of course, because of Zhou Lam's line at that time. He set up this line with the intention of quickly approaching the upper floors of the new capital, but now, I don't know what happened to Qiao Xiangjun, but Su Ran was not too worried. He had appeared in that weird village before. These spore life must know that he could detect and counter their invasion. Of course, it was the system's credit. Su Ran couldn't tell anything at all. It's unusual, but these spore beings are absolutely impossible to know this. If they want to rely on Qiao Xiangjun to contact themselves, they will not be able to invade Qiao's Hizi first, which is tantamount to giving Su Ran an early warning. Jin Seon frowned, and after thinking for a moment, he still said, "I will confirm." Su Ran said, "Very well, I can solve these two problems together. You just need to send me to the interior of the military area and send me in alone. It shouldn't be difficult for you, and then I will stand up, attracting enough attention. At the same time, I can also test whether the awakened ones will be parasitized by spore life. Of course, if possible, I hope to have a sniper team to cover me. Moreover, I need detailed route planning and deployment data, and I need to know how many enemies I may face at most, and what kind of weapons and equipment." Jin Seon looked at Su Ran and said, "With all due respect, even if you are an awakened person, even if you are protected by our snipers, your best end will be to be blown into a burning corpse by rockets, Mr. Su." The madness I imagined was also more irrational. Su Ran shook her head and said, "It doesn't matter whether I'm a fool or a lunatic. According to my plan, if I fail, you will lose at most a group of snipers. My life and death seem to have too much influence on you, but if it succeeds, the loss of Xinjiang Chang can be reduced as much as possible." Jin Seon was silent for a moment, and said, "To be honest, I shouldn't let you take this risk, but as you said, if you volunteer, we can cooperate with you. But I still don't think you can attract enough people. Even so many that are awakened ones have the opportunity to complete the first step of this plan, the beheading operation." Su Ran said, "It's not what you think, but I think." Chapter 135 Fake Medicine? The estimated attack time was set at 6:15 a.m. on the 23rd. That was the daily defense change time of the major districts in the new capital. In theory, the defense force in the military region was the weakest stage, and Su Ran would be led all the way into the central command headquarters in the military region. Minister Kim may have been hesitant before the plan, but once it was finalized, the execution was reflected. Of course, before that, he had already confirmed through his own channel that the spore life was really looking for Su Ran, and made decisions with many high-level officials hidden in the dark. And as Su Ran said, everyone is happy if Su Ran succeeds, but if he fails, there is no harm to the military. Even if Su Ran failed, he could still find out a lot of information about spore life. Moreover, almost no one thinks that Su Ran's plan may be successful. And many people who know the plan even laugh secretly. Is that Su Ran the one who defeated the insect nest in Bingcheng? He is crazy, he is too arrogant. Who does he think he is? So naive. Let him go. Just let me find out. Isn't the scientific research department still lacking data? This time we have it. However, from a cruel point of view, at this moment, Su Ran's actions were allowed, almost tacitly acquiescing that he was going to die. His destroyer crashed. To many people, his only meaning was the mysterious organization behind him that might have more advanced weapons. As for Su Ran's life, Su Ran's attitude towards this has long been expected, but he has to do this. As he said, what he wants is a new capital with combat effectiveness, to help him lay down the Zerg sky brood, and even provide him with a steady stream of resources. Insect Corps, rather than a dead Xinjiang who was tossed by spore life. Minister Jin and the others do still have a lot of influence in the new capital, and they can proceed step by step, but this is the end of the world. It is wartime. Su Ran doesn't want to wait, and for him, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He doesn't have to cooperate with the military to do anything to intervene in the new capital's efforts. If this battle is successful, he will no longer need to flirt with any officials, and he will be able to become one of the most powerful forces in the new capital. What others say, Su Ran didn't care what he thought. He just confirmed that Jin Se-eun would cooperate closely with him and would never miss any chance. So he went all the way to the rest room arranged by Jin Se-eun. Time is passing by every minute and every second. Although he is not optimistic about Su-ran's plan, Jin Se-eun is a cautious and experienced person. He is also actively contacting others. The awakened team has started preparations early. A sniper team has also been organized, and they will set foot on the battlefield with Su-ran with their will to die. Undercurrents are surging in the new capital, but Su-ran was staring at a small injection in his hand that is the primary dark energy excitation drug unit. It was only the size of a palm, and inside it was some kind of miserable green liquid, which was only filled with about half an injection, and it flowed slowly with Su-ran's shaking. That's it. 5,000 resource points. The corner of Su-ran's mouth twitched a little. It's Pete. Why does it look like poison? I can't go through it immediately after injecting it. Intravenous injection of biochemical virus. However, the complaints belonged to the complaints. When it was time to give the injection, Su-ran was not hesitant. With one injection to the end, she injected all the green stuff into her body. Then, there's no after that. Su-ran originally thought that after injecting such a thing, it might be like the awakening of a supernatural power in a movie, with fever, madness or something, and then awakening a supernatural power, instantly turning into a gourd like fire and water baby. But the truth is, there was no response. There is no sudden high temperature, and no ability to breathe fire and water after a tube of potion was shot down. It was as if it hadn't been shot. Su-ran didn't feel any dark energy everywhere. Fuck, I can't take fake medicine, can I? This was Su-ran's first reaction. But then he realized that the products produced by the system cannot be counterfeit and shoddy products. After thinking about it, could it be that he didn't use a full course of treatment? The point is, who can afford 15,000 resource points for a course of treatment? The corner of Su-ran's mouth twitched and asked, System, what's my state now? Sorry, dear host, there is no relevant match in the system resource library for your current question, so you can easily find the answer by yourself or ask the question in other ways. Su-ran thought for a while. System, can I perceive dark energy now? Dear host, you already have the ability to perceive dark energy. Congratulations on taking a solid step on the road of self-evolution. Su-ran, what a foolish system. Sorry, dear host, there is no relevant match in the system resource library for your current question, so you can easily find the answer by yourself or ask the question in other ways. Su-ran sighed. Well, at least the 15,000 resource points are not in vain. At least I have dark energy perception now. Su-ran guessed that it was probably because one tube of medicine was not effective enough for him, and his perception ability was too weak, so he didn't have any intuitive feelings at all. When there are resource points, I will get out 2 tubes of potions and continue to use them. After a full course of treatment, the effect will probably be better. These days, you have to spend a lot of money to play cheats. If you don't have money, you can't do it. Su-ran could only sigh. He rested for a while, and when it was dark, he was ready to act. People from Bingchen, Li Yilin and the others were not aware of this operation, because this time was not enough to transfer them here, and they would not be able to fight side by side with Su-ran, and they were in danger of being parasitized. The first thing Su-ran saw was the sniper team that cooperated with him. There were 6 groups of 12 people and 6 guns. Everyone held their heads high and were not polite to Su-ran. It was Li Changzhao who brought Su-ran here, and it was only later that Su-ran found out that this guy was actually the Secretary General next to Jin Se-eun. On the way, Li Changzhao said, I should have invited you away when Minister Jin issued the order to evict guests, but I heard about you, so I didn't organize it in the first place. Although I also think you are a reckless man, if you follow the old way and the process goes down, I don't know how many people will die in vain in this process. Although I'm not optimistic about you, but I hope you can succeed. Su-ran glanced at him unexpectedly, and said, Thank you. Li Changzhao smiled and said, Everyone's goal is the same, but the ideas, methods, practices, and angles of effort are different. Don't blame Minister Jin and the others. They also hope that you can succeed. Thank you. If you don't die today, next time I'm working, just don't give me any problems. Of course, this is about Su-ran's rioting in the office building. Regarding this, Su-ran could only smile sarcastically. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136 Attack. 5:41 a.m. on the 23rd, Suran got into a military vehicle transporting supplies, and drove towards the military area with slight bumps. Although Jin Seon and other heavyweights have long been hiding under the rough sea, their energy is still huge. Without disturbing the life of the spores, they can quietly send people into the now tightly guarded Xinjiang military region. Scope in the car with Suran was a group of snipers, an observer and an old sniper who looked to be in his 30s. The sniper was very silent. He just sat in the corner, closed his eyes, and said nothing along the way. It was his observer, who kept looking at Suran. Halfway through the car, he couldn't help it, and said, "Hey, I've heard of you. You are Suran. It is said that you bombed and sank the insects in the ice city nest." Suran glanced at him, nodded slightly, and said, "Leave it to me today, don't take any risks." The observer clicked his tongue and said, "Is there any risk here? Although we are not high-level people, we have just learned the exact situation. Don't worry, we will definitely do our best for you. But, brother, you also take us too seriously." This observer has a somewhat uninhibited personality, and when he spoke, he looked like a little ruffian who ran out of nowhere, and said, "Okay, I know you are going to work hard, so I won't say this. It seems that we don't trust you. Anyway, I can also probably see that not everyone is willing to trust you. There are a few guys who have a deep resentment towards you. They think you are too young and not from the army. This is a meaningless death, you know. We are not afraid of death, only that death is meaningless, because maybe in this world, we are just passers-by for others, but what we lack is the protagonist in our own life. Which protagonist does not want to be in a vigorous plot? Curtain? You have to understand." Suran glanced at him and said, "What about you? What do you think?" Hearing this sentence, the observer glanced at the sniper beside him, but didn't speak immediately, as if he was waiting for his companion's possible answer. At this moment, their car was driving into the military area and passing the inspection. Because the channel has been dredged long ago, the inspection here did not really do anything, so they let it go all the way. When the car started to drive again, the observer saw that his partner still had no intention of speaking, so he smiled and said, "I won't tell you all. I've heard your story, although I think it's unbelievable, but what if it happens anyway? I'm the only one left in the family. The only brother is also sitting here. Even if you didn't accomplish anything this year, I have nothing to worry about when I die. Even if I don't, I like the protagonist in my own story. I don't have any regrets, and I think it's a very cool thing." The sniper, who had been silent all this time, finally reacted. This time he turned his head slightly, opened his eyes, and glared at the people around him. The observer laughed. The observer stopped talking about this boring topic, but suddenly became serious, and said seriously, "Mr. Su, we are the closest group of snipers to you, and we will shoot at your predetermined location, which is the Xinjiang Bank. The 19th floor of the Yinlong building behind is in place. We will arrive at the designated location 5 minutes before the scheduled time. Please be sure to confirm that each group of support sniper teams is in place before taking action, and keep in touch with us at all times. We will provide all-round fire cover and attack your designated targets first. We will selectively fire and kill units that pose an absolute threat to you, or absolutely confirmed non-human units. That is, we will support and assist you as much as possible, but we will not respond 100% to your request. Please understand." Suran nodded and said, "I see, thank you." He raised his head slightly, looked at the two people opposite him in the almost completely sealed transport vehicle, and said, "Then, may I know the names of you two?" The observer was slightly taken aback, as if he didn't expect Suran to ask such a question. It was the sniper who opened his mouth, as if ready to answer. However, at this moment, their car suddenly brakes, followed by a huge impact. At this moment, at the crossroads street named Yushan Road, which is 200 meters away from Xinjiang Bank, at the moment when this military transport vehicle roared past, a heavy semi-trailer rushed out from the corner at high speed. Two cars collided in the middle of the intersection. The military transport vehicle instantly became unbalanced, its body was seriously distorted and deformed, and it was overturned on the spot. At the same moment, this picture appeared in a meeting room in the corner of the new capital Jinseon, and many high-level officials gathered here, and they are paying attention to the current situation of Suran's operation in real time through the surrounding surveillance and the invisible drone above the sky. Although everyone is not optimistic about this, it does not mean that they are not optimistic about it. Disregard. Some people came to the meeting in person, while some people appeared here by using network technology. As a city that has been guarded since the beginning of the end of the world, most of the facilities in Xinjiang City are relatively intact. Although the power supply is not fully supplied, It is not difficult to maintain the operation of all functional facilities in the military area and government area. Many people were not optimistic about Su Ran's actions this time, but no one thought that an accident would happen at this moment. Jin Seun's eyes became serious. This is no accident, this is an attack. A certain link between them leaked the wind of the plan. Jin Seun looked at his side. Sitting next to him was Major General Li Ji. He was one of the few people who supported this operation, but at this moment, his eyes became serious, obviously not optimistic about the situation. But Jin Seun recruited his secretary Li Changzhou, and ordered, immediately investigate all the people involved in this time. If there is any abnormality, isolate immediately, including all relevant people. But at this moment, there was a dead silence in the conference room, and at the same moment crossroads of Yushin Road, Su Ran was tearing the iron plate in front of him. The strength of the military transport vehicle was good enough, and it was not smashed on the spot when it hit it. Although the vehicle overturned and the carriage was severely twisted, the situation was not as bad as it looked. Su Ran, who was wearing a dark energy armor, was tearing apart the structure of the car body that was pressing on her at the first moment, and glanced at the direction of the group of snipers. The sniper was sitting in the corner, except for a few bumps, but fortunately he was almost fine. But the observer was pinned down with one leg, and blood dripped from underneath. Su Ran raised his arm, and used the dark energy armor to directly lift the thing that was pressing on the observer's leg, and let the sniper take his companion out. But Su Ran had already left the completely distorted carriage and stood outside. Chapter 137 The Blooming Blood. This military transport vehicle was thrown out more than 10 meters away, leaving shocking scratches on the intersection. The driver of the transport vehicle was killed. The twisted metal structure of the vehicle body cut open his fragile human flesh and blood. Su Ran took a look and found that the cab was full of blood. According to the plan, this operation should not have much to do with him, and he should not be the victim of it. And a semi-trailer that rushed at high speed crashed into a clothing store on the other side, and the engine had also been turned off, with glass shards everywhere. But the driver did not die in the collision. Su Ran stood at the crossroads, turned his head, and saw the scene of the driver walking out of the messy clothing store. It was a man in overalls, about 40 years old, no different from any ordinary truck driver. However, this is the biggest difference: the driver of the semi-trailer was seriously injured in the collision. One leg was broken, but he was still able to walk. His body was covered in blood. There were wounds and glass shards all over his body. His face was even bruised. There was a shard of glass stuck in his eye. A normal person should have died in this situation. This is a parasite. Seeing this, Su Ran couldn't help but take a breath, feeling like she went to the wrong set and saw the legendary zombie. At this time, the sniper was dragging his observer out of the carriage with difficulty. The semi-trailer driver had already walked half the street, his broken leg aggravated by the movement, the bones piercing through the flesh and bouncing with his movement. His only remaining eye fell on Su Ran's body, and he let out a bloody "he" sound from his mouth. Su Ran, he. Strictly speaking, we want to thank you. Before he could finish this sentence, when he was approaching Su Ran's position 10 meters away, his head suddenly exploded, and his body fell down in a daze in the blood mist, unable to utter a word. It was a group of snipers in the distance firing. Su Ran touched the Bluetooth communication device in his ear. It was indeed working, but there was no sound. Interference came sooner than expected. Of course, judging from the current situation, their plan should have been exposed, but judging from when it was exposed and from the current situation, it is still impossible to judge. Su Ran took half a step back, turned her head to the group of snipers behind and said, "Take cover. Be careful of parasites." Although the driver was killed directly, it was also necessary to ensure that there were no spores that reproduced the invasion before it died. Hearing this sentence, the group of snipers who were retreating looked at each other, asked each other a question, and supervised each other to give an accurate answer within 1 second. This is one of the current emergency methods. When judging the initial invasion, whether a relatively private question can be answered in a short time can confirm whether the person has been parasitized. From this moment on, the retreating snipers and observers will continue to ask each other questions to confirm each other's status in real time, and Su Ran checked himself vigilantly. The system was called to the police, but he didn't feel that there was anything unusual about him. Su Ran took a slight breath. This is also normal. According to the information given by Chen Ling, the reproduction speed of these spores is also limited. It is impossible to invade anyone they want. Moreover, if they are really the ones who met Su Ran in that village, they must be knowing that Su Ran is difficult to invade. He will not make unnecessary attempts hastily, and Su Ran is also slowly retreating because at this moment, from the 5-story building of the Xinjiang Bank in front, many combatants are pouring out, each armed with live ammunition, and on the front, a number of armored vehicles and tanks are approaching inch by inch under the cover of infantry. One of the combat teams was at the forefront, consisting of 8 people, and a bazooka had already been raised at this time. The next moment, the light of the tail flame tore through the 5 o'clock morning in this northern city. The sound of the explosion was earth-shattering, and Su-Ran let go of the rocket that was coming in front of him. It hit the semi-trailer behind it, and the fire instantly lit up the world. The high temperature and shock waves spread instantly. When Su-Ran raised his head, he saw the 8 people encircling them. Their speed is extremely fast, absolutely unhuman. Here are 8 parasites. At the same moment, in a corner of the new capital and in a meeting room in the shadows, Li Chi made the same judgment aloud. 8 parasites, counting the first one. When they met each other, these spore life forms showed 9 they can use ordinary human fighters as victims, but doing so only means one thing. Jin Seun's eyes are heavy. Su-Ran is right. He is really the target that these extraterrestrial life attaches great importance to. This level of emphasis far exceeded their expectations. Jin Seun said, "Where's our awakened team? Let's be ready to fight at any time. I have a hunch." I have a hunch. At this very moment, Su-Ran was meeting the enemy. Instantly his figure stepped backwards, flung out a tactical grenade hanging from his waist with one hand, and threw it directly towards the 4 parasites coming up to the right, and pulled out the bolt gun at his waist with the other hand. Rocket-propelled high-explosive bullets whizzed out of the 194mm caliber mouth of this bolt weapon, pointing at a they in the front. But the reaction speed of the parasite was unbelievably fast. It was not an awakened one, and even surpassed the awakened one. It even escaped this incredible high-speed shot. A large cloud of blood mist exploded, but it just staggered and continued to charge forward. What awaits it, however, is a second, third, or even fourth rocket-propelled high-explosive bullet of a surprising caliber. Su-Ran shot out the 6 extremely powerful rocket bullets in the magazine in one breath, and the explosion formed a line on the ground in front of his eyes, like a clump of flaming red bushes growing in disorder, blocking all the progress of the parasite. The road instantly engulfed its fragile body. The terrifying power of the bolt gun dismembered its flesh and blood on the spot, and the ruptured organs and limb fragments flew all over the sky in the glow of flames. But the nearest had already killed Su-Ran. It held 2 high-speed submachine guns, and came close to firing in front of Su-Ran. Fortunately, at this moment, Su-Ran turned his head and stretched out both hands. The dark energy armor burst out with powerful force and grabbed the opponent's hands. With the help of a powerful strength bonus, he brutally suppressed the opponent's arm and muzzle, and used the breastplate on his chest to resist the densely splashed bullets. When approaching, the flames splashed, the bullets exploded, and the shattered and splashed shrapnel even recoiled into the body of the gun-wielding parasite, tearing its muscles, bones and flesh. However, it seemed as if it could not feel pain. Su-Ran rushed backwards under the impact of bullets. It was so powerful that it brought Su-Ran all the way into a flower shop in the back, messing up the piles of withered flowers. And at this moment, the dark energy armor was operating at full power, and the opponent's arm was moaning as it cracked. Su-Ran crushed the opponent's arm abruptly, and with a fracture of the bones, he violently tore off the opponent's hands. After coming down, he punched the other party in the messy flower shop, took out the dark energy hunting gun from the watch space, and switched the gun mode instantly, while dragging the broken body of the parasite, stepping on the ruins and shards of glass come out of the flower shop. They had their hands torn apart, their chests collapsed, and their blood flowed profusely. They were already on the verge of death, but their tone was still calm and indifferent. You are not a cutting-edge evolutionary in the field of dark energy. No matter what you are, you must. With such a fragile body, you can't stand against an army. Su-Ran dragged its body out and sentenced its life with a hand cannon at the entrance of the flower shop in the sputtered plasma. Su-Ran raised her head. The other 6 they are approaching, and behind them, the human army and soldiers are fighting in full line. However, at this moment, in the sky, there is an aircraft whistling through the sky. It was a Wind Falcon attack plane that had been circling outside Xinjiang for a long time. At this moment, using Jin Seun's channel to open the airspace, it was like cold lightning, cutting into the battlefield, and at this moment, the Raptor armored vehicles and unmanned fighter jets in the system are all ready to be put on the battlefield at any time. Su-Ran was covered in blood, looked directly at the parasite in front of him, slowly raised the muzzle of the gun in his hand, and said solemnly, "You are right. Human beings are always limited by the fragility of flesh and blood, and no one can resist an army. But sorry, I'm not alone. I am an army." Chapter 138. You are strange. Boom. It was a sound like a watermelon exploding. The head of a parasite in front of Su-Ran suddenly exploded, blood spattered, and his body fell straight down. That's when the sniper on the other side opened fire. They withdrew from the overturned transport vehicle and immediately retreated into a storefront behind them. The sniper and the observers found a hidden corner on the first floor and opened fire at this time. At the same moment, Su-Ran's Wind Falcon attack plane also cut into the field, like a black lightning. But at this moment, his Wind Falcon drone was still unmanned, and could only fly according to the procedure set by Su-Ran in advance, but could not fire or kill. However, the purpose of this Wind Falcon attack plane descending from the sky was not to launch an attack, but to complete containment and attraction. Su-Ran didn't come here to cleanse the land, and he didn't want too many real human beings to die today. The arrival of the Wind Falcon UAV has indeed attracted the attention of many fighters behind, and they began to adjust the muzzle to launch an attack on the Wind Falcon attack aircraft in the sky. But what they might not have imagined was that Su-Ran's program for this fiercely killed Wind Falcon attack aircraft was to fly randomly in the sky but in the front direction. The remaining 5 are still walking step by step. The sniper in the dark, the death that was just around the corner, seems to be no threat to them at all. The first person on the far right spoke first. "What are you?" Immediately afterwards, the second person took the sentence without interruption. "Are you also an extraterrestrial life? Which arm of the galaxy are you from? Why are you here? Why are you here?" The 5 people spoke at the same time. Except for the different tone, the tone and intonation were almost identical. This scene looked extremely strange. This is. Su-Ran frowned. Could it be that this is also a hive-like thinking mode? These spore life also have the only mother worm? No, not quite right in this regard. Chenling and Minister Jin did not give Su-Ran any hints. It's not that they want to keep it strictly confidential, but that they don't understand that these spore life forms never talk to humans. As soon as they arrive at the new capital, they immediately start invading, as if for them, it has no meaning to communicate with humans at all. Therefore, the military's understanding of what kind of creatures they are is actually very limited. However, I really was regarded as an alien life. Su-Ran didn't answer any questions, because these questions were basically impossible to answer. He asked back, "Why do you appear here? Why do you ask me which arm of the Milky Way I come from?" As soon as these words came out, the 5 they all fell silent. In this silence, Su-Ran realized that it wasn't that his question hit the point, but that he asked a question that he shouldn't have asked. In theory, "You really don't know anything. You're weird. If you are willing to present you to us, we can keep you alive. Today we have mastered the power of human beings, and you cannot compete with us." It seemed that they didn't know what words to use to describe the last person, but Su-Ran realized that this person here definitely did not refer to the person in the normal sense. The 3 sentences were still uttered from the mouths of 3 different people, but the other 2 they immediately took action and strode towards Su-Ran, and as they advanced, the military troops stopped at the intersection of Yushin Road began to advance neatly. They were still more than 100 meters away from here just now, and this conversation was not heard at the same moment. In the hidden meeting room in the new capital, there was an instant uproar. The pictures on the scene mainly come from nearby surveillance and drones in the sky, while the sound basically comes from surveillance equipment. Although there are not many such outdoor surveillance with pickups, there happens to be one in nearby. However, the sound coming back it was also intermittent, but the content in it was enough to shock everyone at the meeting and set off an uproar. An important official even complained, saying, "Old Jin, this Su-Ran, is he also an extraterrestrial life?" From the invasion of Zerg and the emergence of spore life to the present, the global crisis and the end of the world, the alien creatures that were once far away in the sky have become a terrorist threat that is close at hand. Everyone has experienced danger and fear from it. Therefore, when we talk about the Earth, extraterrestrial life is almost a matter of talk. Jin Seon also did not speak for a long time. Impossible. If Su-Ran is an extraterrestrial life, why didn't the previous tests detect it at all? But from what the parasite said, they seem to believe that Su-Ran came from outside the Earth. If not, why would Su-Ran be so important to the spore life that even disdains to communicate with humans? Even take the initiative to talk to Su-Ran on the battlefield. Su-Ran didn't know that the military's conference room had been blown up at this time, because the threat was approaching. They are coming on the flames, and behind them, military troops are encircling from 3 intersections. The heavy machine guns fired first, and the dense bullets tore through the ground, splashing a large cloud of smoke and dust. But Su-Ran stepped back on the ground at a high speed, retreating towards the building behind, and the 2 tanks were slowly turning their muzzles, and armor-piercing projectiles with a caliber of 120 mm roared out, A 120mm caliber armor-piercing bullet is enough to tear apart Suran's flesh and blood armor together with a dark energy armor. Fortunately, his dark energy armor can greatly improve his mobility, so he dodged it in time. In an instant, 2 heavy shells were fired. Those 2 armor-piercing bullets smashed into the building behind with a piercing roar, instantly blasting 2 huge holes in it. This was pure fire suppression, and Suran was retreating inch by inch. The 5 they stood at the front of the line, stopped running, and only looked at Suran with 5 pairs of cold and emotionless eyes. But they also became the targets of snipers behind Suran, and from afar the 6 groups of snipers have already been in place. Although the development of the situation has exceeded their expectations, they are all well-trained fighters. At this time, they also opened fire one after another, shooting and killing the parasitic who showed obvious characteristics of parasitism. Suran pushed into a 7-story building on the side of the street. The heavy artillery of the tank tore up the entire gate of the building and collapsed. Then, an infantry chariot rushed into the building with a roar, chasing the broken plates all over the place. In that building, the cannon shooters on it fired wildly, but the driver was equally expressionless, trying to force Suran to death in this building. Chapter 139. Who surrounded who? There was soot everywhere. This is a small 7-story building, facing the direction of the intersection, with 7 sales rooms. A single shot from the front of the tank blew up the small Chongqing noodle shop in the middle, and then the infantry tank rushed in all the way, and the 20mm bullet spewed out from the barrel of the machine gun completely destroyed the former noodle shop. But Suran had already crashed through a wall and came to a storefront on the other side. Here, too, it is under fire. The infantry came all the way. As soon as they saw Suran, they all turned their guns. Suran rushed up against the dense bullets, and shot fiercely, knocking down all the soldiers in the room. These are not parasites, but ordinary human beings. But it is impossible for Suran to hold back in this life and death situation. But at this time, there was a loud noise from the direction of Chongqing's Iomian behind, and the infantry tank was crashing through the wall, rolling towards Suran at high speed. At high speed, almost instantly, he came to Suran, and in this small space, there is almost no way to hide, no way to avoid. At the same moment, the group of snipers who had retreated to another street were repositioning. Their situation is not good, because the distance is too close. They also became the target. Many soldiers surrounded from the front, opened fire on them. These people are real human beings, all comrades. The sniper also seemed a little hesitant, and he didn't seem determined to fight back. The observer leaned against the wall, listened to the sound of bullets, and shouted at the top of his voice, "Brother, we are human beings, and you are human beings. Why are you killing each other? Look, those people over there are all injured. Don't you think it's a problem to be able to run like that? They are alien creatures, controlled humans." However, other than making a few soldiers hesitate, his shout didn't have much effect, and the soldiers on the opposite side were still pushing forward. The sniper said, "Suran is also very similar to aliens. It's useless for you to say that, and, have you noticed, they really value Mr. Su. The officers who came this time are all parasites." "Of course I saw it. We have to get rid of those officers first, but we can't even get our heads out now. We have to find a way, and Suran is close to death. We must provide him with support." The observer was only halfway through speaking when there was a loud, earth-shattering noise in the field, which attracted almost everyone's attention. The sniper observed the situation outside through a small mirror, but gasped. The loud noise came from the building where Suran was. Accompanied by this sound, the first floor of that building was collapsing completely, and a huge monster was coming out from inside. It was a heavy armored combat vehicle with a length of 11 meters and heavy armor. It had a huge turret with a caliber of 150mm and a short-range 55mm vehicle-mounted cannon. Among them, it even raised a dark purple deflector force field shield on the front, that is the Raptor armor chariot, and it seemed to appear suddenly, forcibly resisting the infantry tank that was rampaging in the building, and even rushed out against the infantry tank, and the 20mm machine gun bullets on the tank hit the ground. On its deflector force field shield, the shots were deflected in all directions, and many surrounding soldiers were shot and killed by stray bullets, which couldn't hurt this heavy tank at all. And the turret on the dragon chariot was slowly lowering the muzzle, and when it approached the infantry chariot that was directly facing him, it fired a blast. Smoke and flames billowed up, and the infantry tank was torn apart by the armor-piercing projectile in the center, and it was torn into 2 pieces like a piece of foam brick. Amidst the ear-piercing sound of friction, it slid obliquely to the sides under inertia, while the raptor in it is rumbling over the earth, going forward indomitably. The observer groaned, "My God! Is that Su-ran? Where did he come from, such a big guy? Unfortunately, no one could answer his question. Su-ran's raptors rushed forward for a certain distance and then adjusted their direction. While facing the artillery fire head-on, they started to move towards the rear where the snipers were hiding. Su-ran didn't forget these two guys, but he knew that his raptors would not be able to last for too long. The frontal military firepower was too strong. According to the radar, there were still a large number of armored troops coming here. He wanted to make more noise, and then retreated to the Silver Dragon building where he planned to hide. The rest would be left to the military and the awakened team. The snipers and observers were all infantry. When they saw such a huge monster rushing towards them, they all gave way. This also made Su-ran succeed in coming to the two soldiers at the first time. He jumped off the raptor chariot, cooperated with the sniper to get the observer into the chariot, and at the same time, under the cover of the chariot and the building's ear, he began to release the attack drone. In this regard, his reserve is actually not much. He built quite a few before, but at that time he put them into destroyers. He originally wanted to come to the new capital to install 13, but he did not expect that they were all destroyed later. At this time, he could only take out 12 of them, and he simply set them up, and immediately let them go into the air one by one, roaring through the sky, whirling in the sky, and launching an attack. On the other hand, Su-ran stepped on the raptor armored vehicle again and drove the chariot back. A large number of troops were attracted by him. Infantry, tanks, all around his raptors were firing. The deflector force field shield failed completely after not being able to support it for too long. An armor-piercing projectile hit the 800mm front composite armor plate of the raptor head-on. It curled up, and on the side, a large number of soldiers carried rocket launchers and anti-tank weapons to fight, launching a fierce attack on the side armor and the tracks of the tank. The turret of the raptor was also slowly adjusting. A heavy armor-piercing projectile roared out, hitting a tank in the center head-on, piercing it on the spot, and a red light rose from inside. The raptors are retreating in the billowing smoke. 12 drones are bombing down the street. The entire street was filled with flames from the explosion, and under the cover of the fire, Su-ran released a land killer he had built before, switched to the automatic guerrilla mode, and the powerful firepower turned the tide of the battle in a short time, and turned against the military to fight. The snipers who cooperated with Su-ran from far and near were stunned. Only then did they finally understand that Su-ran did not talk big, but had absolute strength, and even really formed an army by himself. Many leaders in the conference room were stunned. One high-ranking officer moaned, "My God, does this guy have a legion of automatons with him? How did he do that? This guy is a monster. This is definitely an extraterrestrial civilization. This fucking is definitely an extraterrestrial civilization." At the same time, Jin Seon received the latest news. The defense force in the direction of the headquarters closest to the battlefield has been mobilized, and reinforcements are being rushed to the crossroad of Yushin Road. Jin Seon couldn't help looking at Li Ji beside him. The major general stood up, looked around the audience, and said in a deep voice, "Our chance has come. Everyone put away your surprise. No matter who this Mr. Su from the Ice City is, at least he is standing on our side now. Here, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so arrange it immediately. Our awakened squad and related combat troops will all attack, and everything will act according to the plan." Jin Seon looked at the picture sent back, but his eyes seemed a little deep and distant. The data sent back shows that not only the human army has been mobilized, a large number of parasites are also moving in this direction, and many high-ranking military parasites are even rushing to the battlefield. He suddenly realized that the command headquarters they regarded as the key. In the eyes of these spore beings, the human command headquarters and officers were completely meaningless and not that important. Chapter 140 Beheading Operation. The morning light is rising from the east, and there is still some faint mist floating in the morning of the new capital city. Everything looks calm and serene. The urban area where a few survivors live is extraordinarily peaceful, and it looks like every day before, without any difference. But in the military region, the situation is becoming more and more serious. The military's awakened squad was severely blocked. They attacked from the opposite direction to Su-ran's. According to the established plan, they should be able to accurately arrive at the designated location, approach quickly, and complete the beheading operation, but their news seemed to have leaked, and they were intercepted and killed on the way. The troops of ordinary human fighters mixed with parasites firmly intercepted the awakened squad, and started a battle in the opposite direction from Su-ran's direction. And because of this, the coordinated forces that cooperated with this awakened team were also dragged into the battle situation, and fell into a big melee. In an instant thick smoke billowed, explosions shook the sky, and the figures of the awakened were piercing through the guns, but the awakened are also flesh and blood. They are only users of dark energy. They have not yet crossed the limits of human beings, and under the powerful firepower, they are almost in a state of being completely suppressed and beaten. In front of them is the newly reorganized 7th Armored Battalion in the new capital of the military under the command of the Parasite. After the recovery of the new capital city, due to a large number of personnel losses, the army structure and management structure of the new capital city were reorganized. The original troop number was banned, and the reorganization was carried out. After the reorganization, however, this does not mean that this time the plan has come to an end. At this moment, in the 7th Armored Battalion, many soldiers at the bottom were lowering their guns intentionally, and the bullets they spewed did not fly towards the bodies of the suppressed awakened ones, but landed on the ground instead. The men exchanged glances with each other, their eyes flickering. At a certain moment, news broke out from certain communication nodes, and these people acted instantly. At this moment, they violently fired at the parasitic commanders around them, who seemed to be no different from ordinary people. In the astonished eyes of the soldiers, they directly shot and killed everyone's leaders in a pool of blood. Immediately afterwards, these people raised their guns and said loudly, "Don't be fooled by them. These people are the real infected people. You see, they are still alive after being beaten into receive by us. This is not an awakened person, this is an infected person. Infected people who are not human, that's the truth." Those human beings who were not directly shot in the head were still struggling in a pool of blood even though they were battered, and some even stood up expressionlessly and shot. That is the spore life in their brains that controls their bodies, forcibly giving instructions, secreting hormones, and forcibly operating their flesh and blood bodies that are already riddled with holes. The scene was weird and crazy. In the eyes of everyone, they were all shocked. Even those who had hesitated about what those people who suddenly betrayed and shot their commander said just now had to believe it. Even an awakened person can't do this, only the infected, those alien monsters, have such abilities. In the explanation, everyone uses the infected person instead of the parasite because the situation of the parasite cannot be explained clearly in 1 or 2 sentences. On the contrary, the infected person that everyone already knows can help everyone quickly understand the situation, and the same scene is happening in every corner of the military region. Moreover, at the same time, in the command centers at all levels in the military area and the government area, groups of awakened people appeared in groups of 3, taking advantage of this opportunity of a large number of troops being transferred out. They are rushing in an all-round way. Kill the parasites. The layout of the military broke out at this moment, and as the command was also hit, the chaos below became even more chaotic. It was difficult for the parasites who only occupied the position of officers to control the overall situation, and the deployment of the military was mostly low-level soldiers, non-commissioned officers, etc., and their numbers were huge. The parasites are basically defenseless, and the paralysis of the upper layer makes the response even more unsuccessful. Although Jin Xian and the others are cautious, it does not mean that they have no influence, nor does it mean that they have no power in their hands. In fact, what Jin Xian said to Su Ran before, that they only have a team of awakened people, is also reserved. Yes, that awakened team is just a cover, and it doesn't matter if it is sacrificed. They are rapidly regaining control of military and government districts. At the same moment, Su Ran also felt this change. At this moment, his raptor chariot has turned into a massive scrap metal with billowing thick smoke, and the Wind Falcon attack plane is falling from the sky, dragging black billowing smoke, turning into a massive blooming. At the end of his field of vision, only the land killer rampaged like a monster, dragging down half of the legion with his own strength. Su Ran and the group of snipers were retreating, and the scrapped raptor chariot became their best cover according to the normal situation. This is the opportunity for the large military forces to press on and continue to attack, but the opponent did not do so, and the 5 groups of snipers in the back also ceased fire at this time because there was a sudden chaos inside the military front behind. Su Ran took a slight breath, realized that the military's action had achieved results, and immediately controlled the land killer remotely to end the killing mode and change it to simple interception. Jin Xian and the others shot faster than he imagined, and their wrists were stronger and sharper than he imagined, but that doesn't mean they were safe. Su Ran's gaze quickly traveled across the streets on both sides. The expressionless parasite crossed the blockade of Su Ran's semi-automated army, and was approaching him along the streets on both sides, bypassing the burning dragon chariot in front of him. It seems that they don't seem to care that they are now being pulled from the bottom. The eyes of every parasitized person fell on Su Ran's body, and every face showed no expression, like Walking Dead. Striding towards Su Ran from both left and right directions at almost the same moment, Jin Se-eun received the latest battle report from the frontline. The awakened group who carried out the beheading operation is facing strong resistance. Frontline pictures are being sent back through the battlefield recording equipment carried by combatants. In the picture, it can be clearly seen that an awakened person with flame ability is advancing in the corridor, pushing his hands forward flatly, and the flames swept out like a mad dragon, engulfing the entire corridor in the soaring flames. However, right after that, from the flames, there was a human figure striding out of the flames, with flames all over his body, and severe burn marks everywhere. But he seemed to be unable to feel all of this. He ran out of the flames like a cheetah. During the running, his right leg could be seen twisted and deformed. However, he rushed out against the flames and shot directly the awakened person with the flame ability. Shaking and screaming, it seemed that more figures rushed out of the flames. Chapter 141. Strive for 10 shots in 1 second. The screen returned by the recorder is shaking violently. Gunshots and roars rang out. Fire, Old Lee, to the east. Immediately afterwards, there was silence on the screen facing the ceiling. A shoe sole full of burnt marks soon appeared, and the recorder was completely crushed with 1 foot. However, they still possess strong combat effectiveness. In the meeting room, the eyes of all the participants were very cold. This situation was both expected and unexpected. After all, the number of awakened people is limited and their levels are limited, and although these parasites use human bodies, their fighting power is already comparable to that of monsters. The order was conveyed from this conference room one by one: strengthen the blockade, and never let any parasite leave our control. What matters is not the decapitation, but the total strangling of the spore life and the parasites. The military didn't want to let go of even a spore life, because once a spore life left their side and mixed into the tide of survivors in the new capital, it might not take long before it would make a comeback. Cutting grass and roots, eliminating threats, is the meaning of action. However, some awakened teams suffered devastating blows, and some awakened teams completed their tasks extremely well. From the picture, there is an awakened person, facing a spore life driving towards him at high speed, but he does not dodge or dodge, directly raises his hands, and closes them in mid-air at that moment. Like a giant hammer falling, the car driven by the spore life was twisted and flattened out of thin air. Under the huge force, it twisted into a ball, and the spore life and human flesh and blood inside were directly. It was crushed into meat paste, and a large amount of blood flowed out of the scrap iron like a stream. But the burly man who did all of this didn't even look back. He walked straight to the next goal in a chick way, and lit a cigarette. Jin Se-eun didn't know much about awakened people, let alone how many awakened people, so he couldn't help being surprised. Who is this? Li Ji beside him smiled slightly and said, he is Zhou Ran, a rare master of cutting-edge dark energy. His dark energy perception intensity has reached 5. Therefore, unlike other awakened people, he can truly use dark energy capable of power and unrivaled destruction. Jin Se-eun had heard of this. As we all know, the ability of the awakened person comes from the perception of dark energy, and this perception also has a difference between strong and weak. The perception is weak, almost no ability, and the stronger the perception, after systematic training, can explode. The ability to come out will be stronger. According to this point, from the very beginning, it has been distinguished according to the difference in perception ability. There is no upper limit for calibration. The higher the value, the stronger the perception ability. However, although this judgment method is widely spread, because in the current global situation, there is no unified evaluation standard. Generally speaking, the number of awakened people with a perception level of 2 or 3 is the largest. Under the influence of the virus, they have the ability to perceive dark energy, but they cannot really realize dark energy, let alone make substantial changes. Manipulation, but this perception also brings them the possibility of applying dark energy. Therefore, when they use dark energy, they will display abilities such as flames and ice, and the effects of the abilities are also very limited. And further up, if the perception level can reach 5, it will be like the scene in the screen that was just sent back. The dark energy will not be transformed into flames and other forms, but will be displayed purely in the form of energy. Same moment Su Ran is launching a massacre. The army besieging Su Ran by the Spore Life organization is breaking out into chaos from within, but they have not weakened their desire to control Su Ran. A large number of parasites came out more and more, and continued to attack Su Ran. A tank even rumbled over the ground and came towards this side, and the first ones to arrive in front of Su Ran were of course the walking parasites who came along the street first. They also have all kinds of weapons in their hands, and Su Ran directly took out 2 boxes of grenades from the watch space, handed them to the sniper and his observer, and let these 2 professionals who regard accurate shooting as their life criterion start a strange battle. The career of a bombardier with emotion, the two started throwing grenades frantically, causing explosions everywhere on the street. Suran, on the other hand, had a dark energy hunting gun in the form of a hand cannon, and a pistol grenade, which opened fire in the same way. The powerful firepower directly crushed the millet plus rifles of these parasites, submerging them all in the skyrocketing explosion and flames. Suran directly said proudly, "Don't care about the consumption, and don't care about the accuracy, throw it casually, and strive for 10 shots per second." The sniper and observer broke out in a cold sweat after hearing this, but what they were more curious about was, where did Suran conjure up such a big chariot and boxes of grenades? However, in this kind of wartime, they don't have time to find the answer to this question regarding the supply of ammunition. The two of them were not polite, and threw bombs out with all their might. Suran also continued to fire. The three of them opened fire across the board, forcibly playing the feeling of covering the street with firepower. The sniper and observer were also from the army, so the accuracy of the bombing was incredible. Coupled with a huge supply of ammunition, the whole street was burning and the ground was shaking. Those who were directly submerged by the flames could not even find their shadows, even if their vitality is strong. Under the cover of this kind of grenade, the flesh and blood will be blown up, and none of them can come to Suran and the others. It wasn't until the tank appeared on the field crushing the flames that Suran's Iron Triangle bombing team was completely defeated. The three of them dispersed urgently. A high explosive bomb landed on their hiding place just by a hair's breadth, blowing up half of the building in an instant, and in the middle of the street, the flames are fading out, and the tank is rumbling over the ground, tearing apart Suran's fire cover for the parasites. Behind it, dozens of they are passing through the flames, passing through the smoke and dust at high speed. Among them, he approached Suran's position. Suran didn't mean to fall back to his land killer and drone. He looked at the parasites. He wanted to catch some live ones and get a better understanding of the situation. He has many questions and needs these alien creatures to answer them. It seemed that they were besieging Suran, but Suran started to move towards them on his own initiative. The genius remembers the address of this site in 1 second. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 142 Burning Body. Chapter 142 The Burning Body. The intelligence level of the spore life is not low. Although Suran only communicated with them for a few short words, the information they revealed made Suran very interested, and now that the situation is turning to humans, Suran only needs to wait for a while, and there will definitely be a large number of reinforcements coming at this moment. Intercepting and attracting the enemy is no longer the goal. Suran has more time and opportunity to do what he wants to do. There is no need to waste time on this tank. Therefore, instead of retreating, he confronted them and the tank running over the street head-on, and they seemed to have the same idea as Suran. Suran rushed towards the direction of the tank, and a large number of parasites quickly adjusted their attack direction and approached Suran at close range. The tank was also running, trying to crush Suran on the ground. However, Suran had a dark energy armor on his body, so he moved very fast. He relied on the tank to move around, which made it difficult for the tank to function, and even made this huge monster a bunker for Suran to fight with the parasites. There are a large number of they, and there are at least 20 people who are capable of fighting in the field. They are all monsters who are not afraid of death or injury. If Suran wants to keep alive, of course, he will not use any more power weapons, instead, turned into hand cannons and laser swords. Approaching combat, he not only wants to keep alive, but also wants to keep all the parasites here. In this case, the tank in the middle became Suran's weapon and he fully utilized it. With the help of the chaotic terrain, he started to kill the more than 20 parasites in an all-round way. When the situation developed to this point, Suran realized that the parasitized people also wanted to keep him alive, or in other words, they couldn't be sure whether the human body that destroyed Suran could survive, so it was a little bit awkward to take action. Restraint. Does this really treat me as some kind of alien? Want to wring some information out of me, too? Suran's eyes were heavy, but he didn't dare to be careless. These parasites were not killers, but they were also extremely ruthless and powerful. A burly parasite rushed in front of Suran, forcibly shot out all the bullets in the rifle in his hand, simply picked up the rifle in his hand, and smashed it head-on. Suran swept the laser sword, and pierced through the standard rifle, using his strength to throw it towards the parasitized person behind him on the spot, but this left Suran wide open, and there was a gap in defense at this moment. The burly parasite had already arrived in front of Suran, took out a pistol from his waist, and fired violently at Suran's head. Directly emptied a magazine of bullets. A 9mm caliber bullet hit Suran's helmet, causing the whole helmet to tremble. At close range, It even burst into cracks. It's not that Suran's dark energy armor is weak, but that the helmet is the weakest link in his dark energy armor. This is also the reason why Suran tried his best to avoid being hit on the head in previous battles. In fact, the helmet system of the dark energy armor is a holographic display system. From Suran's internal point of view, it is almost without a helmet display to ensure Suran's broad vision. Suran immediately raised the hand cannon, and aimed a heavy shot at the man's chest. When the blood flashed, a huge hole was blown out of the man's chest. Half of his body was blown to pieces, and he flew out, but he still struggled to return to the battlefield, but his head was crushed by the slowly turning tank and Suran was facing the next opponent in the distance. The sniper had just settled down his injured fellow observer, then he raised his head and looked in this direction, and saw Suran wrestling with a large number of parasites. It was an extremely bloody confrontation. Those parasites rushed towards Suran in the middle, one after another. Under the control of the spore life, their bodies were accurate down to the level of organs and even cells. Every relevant gland was secreting hormones, and the mitochondria in every cell, they were all screaming excitedly, pouring incomparably powerful power into the flesh and blood they drove. There was a click. The front breastplate of Suran's dark energy armor finally shattered in the frequent attacks. The full armor of the dark energy armor began to strobe in unbalanced light, and the state of dark energy infusion was seriously leaked, along with a rupture of the main structure of the armor, which caused the defensive effectiveness of the entire armor to drop sharply. Suran raised his head. In front of him, a female soldier who was sweating profusely was throwing away the large caliber shotgun in his hand and striding towards Suran. Suran retreated at a high speed, and was urgently changing the clips at the same time, but the speed of the opponent was not slower than him. He had only changed half of the clips, and the woman had already killed him in front of him, and she punched hard like steel. Smash down. The main characteristics of the dark energy battle armor are being lost. It is difficult to maintain a strong defense when only the metal structure is left. This punch completely smashed the front breastplate and penetrated heavily into the battle armor. At the same time as the damage was done, the bones of this fist were almost shattered. The twisted metal structure pierced through the woman's small iron fist ferociously. The sharp metal wire penetrated the flesh, muscles and bones. When the woman pulled out the fist, the breastplate was fully upward. It was lifted, but the woman's right hand was already dripping with blood. Half of the bones in her hand were peeled off, and the bones were distorted and deformed. As if she didn't feel it, she immediately raised her left fist and slammed it down heavily, but her second punch failed to land on Suran's body, because that delicate fist hit the muzzle of a huge cannon. After Suran finished reloading, the hand cannon made a loud hum. The cannon went from bottom to top, and the opponent's arm and upper body were blasted into blood and flesh all over the sky. Without looking back, Suran threw the laser sword in the other hand towards the parasite behind him, and then took out the second laser sword from the watch space. Su then took a step back, because in this gap, 3 more parasites killed him. The bodies of their rise up, and a slight steam rises out. Everyone's eyes are red, and the blood vessels of the exposed body are protruding one by one. The state of they was beyond Suran's expectation. He once thought that the combat power shown by these parasites before was already at its limit. At this time, Suran was a little distracted. What he thought of was, that woman's steely punch just now pierced through the dark energy armor and landed on him. Why didn't his bones break? The genius remembers the address of this site in 1 second. Mobile version reading website. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143. This thought only flashed through Suran's mind because 3 beast-like parasites had joined hands to kill him. They are too fast. This terrifying potential stimulates the full potential of the human body. The control, allowing them to have the powerful strength, speed, physical strength and reaction ability of the awakened, or even surpass the awakened in a short period of time. Within 10 meters, Suran's hand cannons could be dodged by them, and the price to pay for this is heavy. Many of the parasites who came to the battlefield are the confidential personnel in the new capital. Their bodies are not strong, and they don't have enough material to burn. They can only last half a minute in this way of fighting. After this time, even if they are not killed, their bodies will weaken and die, and the organs of the whole body will be irreversibly destroyed at the end of the excitement. But at this moment, it is the spore life that controls these bodies, and they obviously don't care about this at all. They only care about how to capture and kill Suran at this time. Su-ran had to admit that he was slightly exaggerated. He thought he could get rid of more than 20 parasitic ordinary people in this area, and get the information he wanted to know from the mouth of the spore life, but he didn't know that the spore life also thought that they were enough to take down Su-ran. Get the intelligence they want to know. The only difference is that they really have the information that Su-ran needs, but Su-ran doesn't have anything of value in his hands, so even if they succeed, it doesn't make any sense. Of course, these spore beings seem to be extremely sure that Su-ran is different and is an extraterrestrial creature. Therefore, they would rather give up the new capital than give up Su-ran here. Fortunately, the number of they is not much. The 3 parasites are attacking Su-ran hand in hand. One of them, in the middle of the journey, suddenly exploded, blood gushed out, and fell down in a daze. It was the snipers who were in charge of covering Su-ran in the distance opened fire. In fact, they have been firing. However, facing the parasites in this state, it is difficult for them to guarantee the accuracy of shooting. Also, they don't have many chances of shooting. The moment one fell down by the parasite, the other 2 had already arrived in front of Su-ran. These 2 assault pistols in each hand, directly made Su-ran give up the idea of hand cannon confrontation. The victim throws it to the tank behind, holding a lightsaber in the other hand, usually piercing the belly of another parasite, while getting out of the damaged part of his own armor as much as possible. The dense bullets shot at close range, tearing apart Su-ran's dark energy armor that was on the verge of collapse, and the parasite who was close at hand finally shot out the bullets of the 2 assault pistols in his hand, pressed Su-ran's hand holding the laser sword with one hand, and approached at high speed, letting the laser sword penetrate him, and raised another iron-like fist slammed down heavily. Su-ran's complexion changed suddenly, and he instinctively raised his other hand to block the opponent's fist. But the armor of his hand was completely shattered, and shocking blood was torn out by the shrapnel. With so much power, this punch can even break Su-ran's hand, but Su-ran still didn't take back his arm, because he was wrong. This blow smashed his head. At this moment, in a blink of an eye, Su-ran was ready. He would counter-kill the opponent after receiving this blow. However, the next scene was beyond Su-ran's expectation. There was a muffled sound of flesh and blood colliding. The punch of the parasite was unexpectedly blocked in front of him by Su-ran. Su-ran's palm abruptly blocked the punch. Su-ran could even feel the sweat flowing down the opponent's arm and fist into his own palm. At this moment, not only Su-ran was stunned, but the parasitized person's expressionless face also flashed a look of astonishment. His eyes turned and fell on Su-ran's hand, and he said in shock, "How is this possible?" But Su-ran reacted instantly. That is the primary dark energy excitation drug unit. His grandma's 5,000 resource points did not come in vain. He had been fighting with a dark energy armor just now, and he didn't realize his changes at all. Although he didn't awaken any unbelievable abilities, nor did he feel the so-called ubiquitous dark energy, but he did change, and his strength and physical strength were enhanced because of this. The punch of the female parasite just now failed to penetrate his chest. Because of this, the stray bullets and fragments that crashed and flew only left bloody holes on his body. At this moment, Su-ran suddenly exerted his strength. Unlike these parasites who forcibly stimulate their physical potential, Su-ran's strength comes from drugs, which are comprehensively enhanced. After several hours of changes after injection, he completed a 1/3 course of transformation, so the strength of his body are absolute, completely different from these parasites who have been strengthened but are still fragile. The movement of bones bursting sounded in the field. The fist of the parasite in front of Su-ran was directly crushed by Su-ran in the palm of his hand. Before the other party could say anything, the sniper in the distance had already used its paws to correct its position and smashed it with one shot head. What followed was a pure death spree. Su-ran really let go of his hands and feet, and cooperated with the sniper in the distance to complete a comprehensive kill. More than 20 they were crushed and defeated soon. Apart from those still huddled in the tank, there were only 3 parasites left outside at this time. Su-ran was going to stop, but unexpectedly, the 3 parasitized people raised their hands first, and the tank that had been adjusting its position slowly stopped. The 3 parasites spoke almost in no particular order. "Our fight is pointless. We should talk. We approve of you. You couldn't perceive dark energy last time. Do you want to rely on humans to open the door to the dark matter realm like those low-level bugs?" These 3 words made Su-ran's heart agitated, but he didn't say anything. Instead he took a step forward, as if he was about to strike, but the snipers in the rear stopped firing, obviously a little confused by the current situation. How should the stars raise their hands and surrender? This is not on the plan. Seeing this, the 3 they still said calmly, "You don't have to bluff. We understand humans. We're willing to talk. And we won't use force. We are a civilized race also. You are too greedy. You've come a long way in technology. Taking another step into dark matter is courting death. Chapter 144 Surrender? At this moment, in the rear, far away, on a certain building, the observers of the third group of snipers began to actively contact their superiors after simple identification and screening. After 2 transfers, the observer directly got in touch with Major General Li Ji, who is now located in the Xinjiang City Combat Command Center, and began to urgently report that the aliens represented by the Spore Life had surrendered. Things Li Ji was surprised when he heard that those Spore Life put down their weapons and raised their hands to surrender. He immediately checked the situation with other combat units. When he encountered a similar situation, he said in a deep voice, "Immediately send the nearest team to check the situation. I want to contact Su Ran. Even if I surrender, I must first control them and prevent them from contacting any other individuals." The observers of the third group over there responded, "The 6th group is the closest to the target, but their communication facilities have been damaged in the battle. I will go to the front line to understand the situation." Li Ji nodded. "Keep in touch and report any situation at any time. I'm talking about any situation, all details." The communication was not hung up, but Li Ji raised his head and looked at other bigwigs in the conference room. Some were shocked, some were expressionless, and some looked pensive. After a while, an officer whispered, "They are already at a disadvantage in the overall battle situation, and it is not unexpected to surrender now. After all, they are also advanced intelligent life forms, and it is unlikely that they will fight us to the death." Another officer shook his head when he heard the words, "No, even if they want to surrender, why don't they surrender to our troops in front of them? Instead they have to announce it to a non-military person on such a local battlefield with few people. Surrender." And an officer thought thoughtfully, "There was a battle report just now, claiming that the Spore Life seemed to be trying to bomb the Yushan Road area with missiles, but was stopped by our awakened team. Could this be an opportunity for them to surrender?" After a long silence, Minister Jin Xian suddenly said, "Before the war, they took the initiative to talk to Su Ran, claiming that Su Ran is also a creature of extraterrestrial civilization. So, is there such a possibility that they are surrendering to Su Ran?" As soon as this remark came out, there was a dead silence. At the same moment, west of the intersection of Yushan Road, there was a messy street. Su Ran looked at the 3 they in front of her, but fell silent. He was very clear that raising their hands was not surrender. They were looking for a chance to communicate with themselves. They don't want to fight with themselves anymore, and planned to solve the problem in a more civilized and peaceful way. But as soon as they opened their mouths, what they said was like a bomb that set off a storm in Su Ran's heart. In just a few sentences, the amount of information is a bit too much. Bugs are using human beings' sensitivity to dark energy to open the door to dark matter. What does this do for bugs? And judging from the tone of talking about bugs, they seem to look down on the Zerg race that is now causing bloody storms on the earth. Moreover, another statement of they is also worth considering. What does it mean that you have gone far in the field of science and technology, and you are looking for death if you set foot on dark matter? How do you know I've come a long way in tech? Could it be that they have observed the 2 wars in Ice City early in some way? That's not right. If they observed it at that time, why didn't they make a move at that time? But why did they make a move later? Just attack the new capital. Moreover, Su Ran didn't feel that he had a good relationship with these Spore Lives. The other party's words were clearly reminding, was it a sign of goodwill, or are you probing? A series of questions came to mind, and Su Ran only felt that her head was buzzing. These spores are extremely dangerous to life. Moreover, there was a huge information gap between him and himself. Su Ran didn't realize that these spores were full of sincerity. After a moment of silence, he avoided the important and ignored the light, and replied ambiguously, "It's okay to talk, and I don't want to fight like this with you, but there is one. The premise is that I want all of your individuals to gather together and be under my observation and control, otherwise, it's out of the question." Su Ran felt that there was no problem with what he said. No matter what the Spore Life took him for both parties, the other party might be an unknown and strange civilization species. If they didn't trust each other, they would never be able to sit down and chat. In particular, they decided to talk now because they realized that Su Ran could not be subdued by force, which meant that they were not a reasonable race. At least they are not willing to talk to races that are not their kind. In this case, Su Ran didn't want to take any risks. He knew how much he weighed. They are still calm, with only a change in their tone, which is somewhat mocking. "It seems that you really don't know us well. We can tell you very sincerely we are collective creatures. We've reached the pinnacle of 3-dimensional carbon-based life." After saying this, the 3 parasites stared at Su Ran with almost identical eyes. as if they wanted to get some kind of information from his feedback. Su Ran frowned, judging from the tone of I heard these contents. It seems that I should know what it means, and understand that it is impossible to observe and control them in the way I mentioned before. But Pete, I can't understand it at all. You think I should know everything, but the truth is I don't know anything. However, this also means that the military's method of relying on external means to investigate and eliminate them may not be able to cause danger to them at all, and they are not afraid at all. Although the gazes of the three parasites were terrifying and inexplicable, it was not difficult to guess what information they wanted to obtain. First, they want to test whether Su Ran understands these things. Second, they want to see if Su Ran has the means to absolutely counter them. Su Ran's thoughts flew. He first asked the system in his brain, what is a collective creature, although they are very strong, claiming that they are the pinnacle of three-dimensional carbon-based life. But as a person who has lived in the internet age full of phishing scams, of course Su Ran will not believe these bragging nonsense. If you are really that powerful, can there be only a bunch of spores left? Being beaten by Lao Tzu, a man on earth, to raise his hands to negotiate. Therefore, although they are very confident, Su Ran also understands that they may also be bluffing and deceiving themselves. Not surprisingly, the system's answer is still no different from farting. Sorry, the way you asked the question is wrong. The system cannot give an accurate answer. This was expected by Su Ran, and he fell into a short silence. He himself is clear about himself. He was only at level 3. When he learned about the spore life from Chen Ling, he had already looked it up in his system manufacturing list. Obviously, there was no way to limit the existence of this level. Chapter 145. Su Ran was silent. The three parasitized people were also silent, and they only looked at Su Ran in front of them with burning eyes, neither in a hurry nor in a hurry, as if they were negotiating with sincerity. After a while, Su Ran said in a deep voice, to be honest, I'm just an ordinary person on Earth. I don't understand what you say, but you must follow my requirements, and you can't invade any human being, otherwise there is no talk. This is Su Ran's final conclusion. I don't know anything, but you have to do it my way. Firstly, he has no way to really control them. Secondly, he doesn't know whether they are really bluffing. With poor information, Su Ran's rash words may cause a more unfavorable situation. Therefore, he simply told the truth and told all the demands. You have to listen to me, otherwise no one will think of a truce today. Although they were very strong, Su Ran did not forget that it was them who raised their hands and asked for a truce, not himself. Solving the crisis in the new capital is the top priority, and everything else can be postponed. Therefore, Su Ran's goal is very clear. Before they could speak, he continued to add, of course, you can use other thoughts to continue invading human beings, but as long as I notice, I will go to war immediately. You can't kill me, I can't stop me from killing you, and you won't have any chance to grow up. As the saying goes, those who are arrogant are afraid of being stunned, and those who are stunned are afraid of dying. Although Su Ran felt that she was lagging behind in the conversation with him, she also figured it out. I am lagging behind, but I have a system and equipment. Your so-called peak of three-dimensional carbon-based life cannot beat it now. I can't invade me. If you don't want to live a good life, I will fight you to the end. However, Su Ran seemed to have said everything, and he seemed very reckless, but he also had his own little thoughts. First, although he claimed to be a human being, in the second episode he only mentioned his methods of incessant death after invading human beings. Second, he didn't mention Zerg at all. This includes Su Ran's own thoughts. First, in the mouths of them, the Zerg race does not seem to be a threat at all, and it never pays attention to the bugs in the back and forth conversations. The contempt is real. They really think that bugs are backward and stupid, so Su Ran didn't mention bugs at all. You treat me as a high-end extraterrestrial civilization, so of course I can't drop the price. I have to be strong. Second, Su Ran bluntly stated that he is a human being, and ordered they not to invade other human beings. At the same time, he revealed that he didn't care much about human life and the life and death of the new capital. A kind of psychology made they aware, that is, Su Ran was deliberately pretending to be a human being to cover up his weakness of not being able to really observe and control them and his lack of understanding of the so-called collective life. This will expose Su Ran's ignorance, but on the contrary, it will confirm his identity as an extraterrestrial civilization. In this way, they may look down on Su Ran, but they cannot see through Su Ran, and they will not rashly attack Xinjing Chang and other human beings. In today's battle, they have nothing to do. Su Ran, there's nothing they can do about it. If they parasitize other human beings, and Su Ran takes action to eradicate the threat, it will be an endless loop. which is not good for anyone. Su Ran thinks this is a suitable deal. He really has no way to directly control the life of these spores, and sooner or later it will be missed, so it is better to ensure himself and the new capital first. Everyone is an extraterrestrial civilization, and they don't care about human beings. I protect human beings to restrict you, because I think you are a threat. Therefore, as long as you dare to parasitize again, I dare to kill people again, and no one can live a good life. Although Su Ran didn't know the real purpose of they invading the new capital, but what is certain is that the spore life will never want to fight itself to the end. And sure enough, when Su Ran's words fell to the ground, the three parasites fell silent. After a while, they seemed to see through something, sneered and said, "You don't have to pretend to be yourself. We are as terrified as you are. We will not act rashly." Obviously, they did fall into Su Ran's logical trap and saw the information that Su Ran wanted them to see and believe. However, Su Ran felt that they seemed to have misunderstood something. Fear. Fear of what? Immediately afterwards, they continued to speak. "You need safe, stable space and time just like we do, and I have to admit it is as a pioneer in the field of technology. You are indeed in a better state and have more advantages than us. Therefore, we are willing to agree to your terms. We are willing to accept all your conditions under the premise of not hurting us. So, can we sit down and talk? This promise is a bit quick." Su Ran also nodded and said, "Yes." Immediately, they asked, "Have you successfully mixed into humans?" "Mix in? Isn't this called mixing with humans?" Su Ran said. "That's right," they said. "Please let them stop attacking us immediately." Su Ran was a little surprised. These guys don't seem to care about this action of humans, but in fact they seem to be heartbroken by being beaten. Thinking of this idea, Su Ran glanced at the three expressionless parasites opposite, but shivered slightly, and took the idea back. They are extremely dangerous, and Su Ran doesn't know enough about them yet. Any subjective speculation may be a big mistake in the future, and at this moment, the observers from the third group were running over and shouted from a distance, "Mr. Su." Su Ran waved to him, "Come here." As he spoke, he glanced warily at the three. They on the opposite side. The three parasites were very calm and authentic. "Do not worry, we will abide by the agreement, not invading any humans. Also, we just need to maintain a safe base, and that's enough. You have to beware of us, and we have to beware of you." Su Ran said, "I can understand this." He was silent for a moment, and said, "Nor are other creatures. Those stupid bugs messed up the planet like this. It doesn't make any sense for us to master other creatures, and, in contrast, we hope to join forces with you." When the three parasites said this, they paused for a moment, and said a joint invitation that surprised Su Ran. Chapter 146. That bunch of stupid bugs have no idea what they're doing. We have to stop their stupidity. You should know this better than us. They spoke one after another, but they were stunned by Su Ran's words. What should I know? The corners of Su Ran's eyes twitched a little at this moment. He even wanted to directly read the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence aloud, but he realized that the group of stupid bugs mentioned by the parasites should be the Sky Mother nest in the northeast wilderness that is close at hand. What stupid things are Zerg doing? Why should I know? Su Ran could hear that there was no element of temptation in what they said. As if they were talking about something they must know, and this is what makes Su Ran most depressed. This thing that they think he must know, he just doesn't know. Su Ran even had the feeling of wanting to ask her soul 3 times, but this kind of hesitation didn't last for too long. Su Ran said in a deep voice with the expression that I understand what you are talking about. No problem, this is what I want to do right away. Having said that, he added another sentence, saying, if you didn't make trouble, I would have done it long ago. If only you had accepted our control earlier. We have already started, of course. You are now on top. These 3 sentences are not so down to earth, but rather seem to be spoken by non-human beings. Su Ran just shook her head, and didn't intend to say any more. I'll talk about the specific details after. I think you guys are not threatening me. Can the parasites obviously felt that Su Ran's request was reasonable, so they all fell silent this time and stopped talking. The scene was so weirdly deadlocked, and the soldiers from the 3rd sniper team on the other side just arrived, so this conversation was sent back to the hidden command center in Xinjiang City through the communication he had been maintaining. For the first time the observer was stunned, and at this moment in the command center, the high-level officials also had strange expressions. An officer said, so, is it true that Mr. Su from the Ice City is also an extraterrestrial being? Now, these 2 extraterrestrial beings plan to join forces to deal with the Zerg. Is this a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Li Ji pondered. Then why did they join forces to deal with the Zerg? They said that the Zerg is doing stupid things. What is a stupid thing? Is it possible that what they are saying now is deliberately telling us? With a series of questions, half of the people in the room who asked them looked at each other in blank dismay. Not knowing how to answer this question, and Jin Seon showed a thoughtful expression. Is that Joint Defense Agency really a fictitious organization? Is Mr. Su from I-City really an extraterrestrial civilization? Perhaps this is the only thing that can explain the authenticity of all the incredible advanced technologies he possesses. So why does he help mankind? Does he represent a peaceful race? Or does he have another purpose? Thinking about it, the Minister Jin said, I have a guess about this point. I wonder if you know the Changbei Mountain investigation and the surveillance and investigation of the Sky Brood that we have been conducting. As soon as these words came out, everyone nodded. A military officer said, I've heard about the Changbei Mountain incident. Isn't that what the higher authorities mean? The search for the underground world of the Earth is called the Whole Project. Minister Jin nodded. The Whole Project is a secret plan that has been implemented before the arrival of the bugs. It was a secret before, but it is almost not now. However, this plan is progressing slowly. This trip to Changbei Mountain, although it was confirmed that there was indeed a change in the world leading to the cave underground in Changbei Mountain, but no more specific information was sent back. However, we have been monitoring the direction of the Sky Brood, but there has been continuous news passed back, although many fell into the hands of the Spore Life. I also got some. Li Ji said in a deep voice, is there any key content? It can be said that there is, or it can be said that there is no. Jin Seon sighed and said, the Sky Brood is currently the largest Zerg army in the 3 eastern provinces. It is too dangerous, and the previous state of the new capital city cannot to keep us leaning towards its exploration resources. Therefore, our exploration team can only observe from a very far distance. The only thing that can be determined now is that the current active area of those bugs is the edge of Longjiang province and our Xinjiang province, the zone, that is, the line along which the Su-Ran destroyer crashed and the regiment leader Chen and the others fled. The range is about 100 to 150 kilometers. Li Jidao, what are they doing? Instead of attacking us, they are circling in the wilderness instead. This has always been everyone's doubts. As early as the first time the Sky Brood showed its majesty outside the Ice City, the new capital city was already shaking up and down, preparing for a full-scale battle. But until now, the new capital city has been turned upside down by the Spore Life, but they are still circling in the wilderness. What are they doing? Jin Seon took a look at Li Ji and said, it's also hard for me to judge. I can only confirm one thing. They are looking for something like crazy. What does it mean? It literally means that they are looking for something, but we don't know exactly what they are looking for. There is also a speculation that it is Section Chief Zhang who arrived 2 days ago. You may have heard of him. He is a physicist. He believes that these bugs are not only looking for something, but may also be because they are trapped there. Jin Seon frowned when he said these words. Obviously he did not fully understand what does this mean. I don't have much information, but Section Chief Zhang said that to prove this possibility, a lot of manpower and material resources are required, which we simply cannot provide at this stage. He only provided a guess, saying that the bug may have been affected by some kind of technology or a higher level of technology, and fell into a strange circle, which may be a cognitive cycle, turning the delineated range into a bug that the bug recognizes. Therefore, it is impossible for them to get out of a completely self-enclosed loop structure. Even if the boundary is right in front of them, they cannot leave. Li Ji frowned, and said in a deep voice, you mean, this is the fundamental reason why they didn't attack the new capital in the first place? Moreover, it is also possible that Spore Life and Su-Ran joined forces to kill the bugs. Reason. He and Jin Seon looked at each other, and both realized some deeper possibility, but neither of them wanted to speak out. Chapter 147 Negotiations with a Weird Atmosphere. Su-Ran got into the military vehicle again. This is a new type of infantry combat vehicle with a lot of space, and he is the only person sitting in it. The military isolated him from those Spore Life in a humane way. Su-Ran looked at the only non-commissioned officer who was like a clerk in the carriage. Brother, I need to contact your superior to confirm a few things, and I want to make sure that the Spore Life is under my watch all the time. The sergeant gave Su-Ran a very serious look, and then said very seriously, Mr. Su, we will do our best to fulfill all your demands. Thank you for your contribution to this campaign, but now please wait patiently for the organization's arrangement. Su-Ran sighed. He probably knew that it wasn't that the non-commissioned officer was dull, it was what his superior meant, and he could tell that the handsome young non-commissioned officer sitting in the corner of the chariot was tense all the way. wanting to look this way but not daring. It felt like riding in the same car with some kind of dangerous monster. It seems that they really regarded me as an alien. Su-Ran could only shake her head. Although he was a little worried, he still believed in the military's response. All the people who came before were a team composed of awakened ones, and took away 3 parasitized people. Moreover, the parasitized person has already confirmed a comprehensive cooperative relationship with Su-Ran and is willing to cooperate actively. Under such circumstances, Su-Ran doesn't think the other party will use any more methods. At that level, if you can do it, you can do it, and if you can't do it, you can't do it. In this case, there is of course the possibility of doing other small actions, but they will never be enemies of humans and Su-Ran, at least not anytime soon. Through the last conversation with them, Su-Ran realized that they were also very urgent to kill the sky brood in the northeast wilderness, as if something terrible would happen if they didn't hurry up and kill those stupid bugs. Su-Ran did not dare to be careless about this, but also attached great importance to it. Moreover, that sky mother nest was originally his goal, and now that the spore life has joined the battle, it must be a good thing. In the short term, the infantry chariot traveled for a while and then slowly stopped. Su-Ran saw the Major General Li Ji in a small cafe before the end of the world. Li Ji is younger than Su-Ran imagined. He looks in his 30s, his face is a little long, and his expression is very casual. He doesn't look like a major general, but he looks like a man who has been in the workplace and has not yet reached his 30s. Get rid of the angry office workers. Seeing Su-Ran, he also smiled slightly, pointed to the empty table in front of him, spread his hands, and said helplessly, "I asked you to come here. I originally wanted to buy you a cup of coffee here, but I didn't think so. The materials have been removed long ago. I just checked and they were taken away when our military personnel were collecting materials." This opening surprised Su-Ran a little. He sat down in front of this man. "In the last days, you can find things everywhere. This sentence does not apply everywhere, haha." Li Ji smiled, and then straightened his expression and said, "I'm sorry, due to various reasons, the higher command cannot come to see you. I hope you can understand, Mr. Su." "I understand." Su-Ran nodded. He glanced at the person in front of him, and always felt that the other person looked at his target with some vigilance and ambiguity, as if he was wary of something. Of course, he was wary of the possible threat from the alien Su-Ran. It was only at this time that Su-Ran realized that it was not someone who thought he was an alien, but even the upper management thought he was not a human being. Su-Ran opened her mouth, wanting to explain, but before the words came out of her stomach, he took them back. Maybe this kind of misunderstanding is a good thing. At this time, Li Ji said, "Thank you. This time the plan went surprisingly smoothly, but there is something interesting that I think I should tell you." Su-Ran nodded slightly. Li Ji said, "Before the Spore Life announced its surrender to you, they used missiles to cover the intersection of Yushin Road where you were. After their plan failed, they decisively chose to surrender." Su-Ran didn't expect these words. The corners of Su-Ran's mouth twitched. He didn't expect that these braggarts who claimed to be collective creatures were so real. "However, even if the Spore Life comes to carpet bombing, I am not afraid. At worst, I will take the risk of disturbing the sky brood and directly launch a battleship." And Li Ji said this. Is he trying to warn himself not to believe in those spore lives? Is this worrying that 2 extraterrestrial beings will unite to attack humans? Su-Ran suddenly wanted to laugh. Then he smiled politely. Li Ji glanced at Su-Ran, suddenly felt a little weird, thought for a while, and said, "Well, it's important. What do you think about spore life?" When he was on the chariot before, Su-Ran kept asking about the spore life, but now he didn't talk about it because he has more important things to do. Su-Ran shook his head and said, "It's not important. I need to confirm a few things first. First, where's your Kijin? Do you know? Second, what is the situation with Captain Chen? Now that the crisis has basically been resolved, Chen Tuanchang's situation should also be confirmed, right? Third, I want to know the situation of a man named Qiao Xiangchen. He is a sniper and has participated in the escort mission of test personnel in Changbei Mountain. Fourth, my people, I want them to immediately get out of the small building where you were hiding and join me." Regarding Su-Ran's series of questions and requests, Li Ji did not show any surprise. He said, "Your Kijin, I can tell you that he was transferred to investigate the situation of the brood. Thinking about it, that person is very keen, and may have noticed some accidents at that time." Having said that, he paused slightly, and asked curiously, "As for the situation of Captain Chen, haven't you confirmed with Spore Life?" Su-Ran, "I haven't had time. Why don't I give priority to obeying the organization's arrangements?" Li Ji was a little ashamed when he said this. Don't dare to be, Captain Chen's situation is very special. He set a trap for you. Spore life seems to think that you can distinguish the concept of being invaded, so Captain Chen was not caught. The invasion is just in a strange state. I'm afraid it will need the help of spore life to wake up. As for your people, I will arrange, you can rest assured. But speaking of Qiao Xiangjin, how do you know about the Changbei Mountain test mission? Su Ran was a little ashamed when she asked this question. Of course, in this case, even if he said openly that I knew nothing about being a spy, but Su Ran is still a face-saving person. He shook his head, sat back and said, okay, I've finished asking my questions. Next, it's time to talk about cooperation. Chapter 148. What a bold tone. When Su Ran said these words, her tone was light and normal. However, Li Ji noticed a slight change in Su Ran's momentum. His gaze sank slightly, and he immediately thought of many things. Is this person planning to cooperate with humans as an extraterrestrial civilization? However, your spaceship has crashed, and now my brother is alone, and he keeps saying that he wants to cooperate. Isn't it a bit too high for yourself? That's such a big breath. Such a thought flashed by. Li Ji knocked on the table, pondered for a moment, and then said, I don't know. Mr. Su, what do you mean by your cooperation? On the surface, it means military cooperation. Su Ran said very calmly, as if he didn't hear the slight irony in Li Ji's words. He said, I have reached a consensus with the spore life. They will also temporarily join our camp and become one of our combat forces against the Sky Brood in the northeast region. Of course, this is very dangerous. Once they control this swarm in turn, they are likely to become our threat again. So we have yet to discuss this matter. On the other hand, I am willing to provide military shelter for the new capital and form an interdependent defense relationship with you. At the same time, I need a lot of resources, insect corpses, ores, etc. Of course, I will take your resources for nothing, and I will exchange these resources with you with advanced weapons and equipment. Li Ji was not surprised by Su Ran's request to replace weapon resources. The Bingchang fleeing convoy had already arrived in the new capital, and Li Ji also learned a lot about Su Ran, but at this time he was more concerned about some other information revealed between the lines of Su Ran. Mr. Su, I don't quite understand. What do you mean? You still have a lot of advanced weapons and equipment. That's right. Su Ran smiled and said, otherwise, do you think I'm going to cooperate with you on my own? Then I think too highly of myself. Behind me is the United Human Defense Agency, there is a constant stream of support for me. These words were fine before, but when it came to the picture, Su Ran and Li Ji involuntarily looked at each other, each showing an expression of sudden realization and understanding. Li Ji, I understand that the general administration of humanity is a cover for your extraterrestrial identity. Su Ran, anyway, everyone thinks I'm an extraterrestrial creature, so it doesn't matter what I say. However, Li Jibin wanted to test Su Ran's identity as an extraterrestrial creature, but when Su Ran's words got to this point, he realized that Su Ran obviously didn't want to mention the matter of extraterrestrial creatures. So he stopped in time and didn't say anything. I asked the question I was going to talk about, but my mind turned, thinking about how to throw a Su Ran into the testing instrument, to check what kind of creature this human-looking thing is, and whether it is a parasitic like spore life. But he would not say these words, and said, we can discuss the details of the cooperation later. I think the more important thing now is the spore life. Do you have any way to control them? Su Ran shook her head helplessly when she heard the words, and said very simply, no. The corner of Li Ji's mouth twitched, and just as he was about to say something, he heard Su Ran continue, they didn't actually surrender, we just reached some kind of short-term peace, but their current condition is very bad. Maybe they used to be very powerful, but for us humans now, except for the strange life forms, they are nothing, and we are also afraid that we will kill them all. Spore life is also limited by life forms. They can rely on spores for biological invasion, but even the spores cannot form a complex neural structure. If there is no formed individual to spread their spores consciously and purposefully, it will be difficult for them to find and determine the target and complete the parasitic process. So if we kill all the individuals they've successfully parasitized, their reproductive and survival rates will drop dramatically. So, they look scary, but they are actually miserable. I don't know why they turned out like this. Li Ji looked thoughtful, and said, it sounds like dandelions. It seems that Mr. Su, you know them very well. Li Ji's words meant something, and he felt that this was Su Ran's understanding of spore life as an extraterrestrial civilization. Of course Su Ran could hear this, but he only hee-hewed twice, thinking, This is what I just guessed from the conversation with the spore life, but Suran wouldn't say this by himself, and said, because their condition is very miserable, they can't do anything to me now, and it's very troublesome for me to kill them all, and we don't think there is any need to fight each other to the death. A temporary settlement has been reached. Of course, it is also crucial that your awakened team stop their bombing of me in time. In short, they gave in and are willing to temporarily accept my control to ensure the safety of each other. In a short period of time, if they are willing, if you keep your promise, you shouldn't take the initiative to parasitize humans. Therefore, you'd better stop shooting their individuals, as this will easily lead to misunderstanding. But I suggest setting up a small-scale isolation area to separate them from ordinary people, and only awakened people can contact them, and ensure the smooth flow of information between me and them. Li Ji nodded again and again. To be honest, these words Suran said were ordinary, but what he heard was terrified. He had seen the battle on the mountain road before, and Suran's shopping battle left a deep impression on him. But suddenly, Li Ji thought a little awkwardly, I don't know when, I actually felt that such things as alien creatures appearing on the earth became commonplace. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Li Jideo, okay, this matter will be handled by our people, and the inspection and custody system in the quarantine area will also be improved. Of course, we will maintain respect and will not really supervise. Suran nodded. He believed that the military and the government would do better than this inexperienced guy. Moreover, Suran has a lot of things to deal with now. The most important thing is to recruit soldiers and buy horses to get rid of his embarrassing situation of being alone as soon as possible. Suran thought for a while and said, then, it's about the Sky Brood. About it, I don't think I need to introduce it. It is the biggest threat. In the northeast region, there is only one situation now. Either it dies, or the new capital city is destroyed. Suran said a lot, but there was no real content. He wanted to see what the military had planned. He couldn't believe that the Sky Brood had been around for so long, and the military didn't have any plans. Chapter 149. Is there a square near here? After Suran finished speaking, she looked at Major General Li Ji in front of her, but to his surprise, Li Ji showed a strange expression. Suran frowned and said, what's the matter? Is there any problem? Li Ji shook his head, nodded again, pondered for a moment, and finally said, no problem, it's just, it seems that you don't know, right? What should I know? Suran was a little strange. The state of the brood in the sky is very weird. Li Ji thought for a while, and talked about the brood that Jin Xian had shared on the conference table before, without mentioning the test and the situation in Changbei Mountain. The so-called whole plan. After listening to Li Ji finished speaking, Suran's expression also became strange. What's the meaning? Sky Brood was looking for something in the wilderness, so it didn't attack the new capital immediately. Suran didn't quite believe this statement. The new capital is here. What madness! In the Sky Brood will let go of the lamb that is close at hand. That day when it appeared on the northeast land with a thunderstorm, it must have exceeded everyone's expectations. If it defeated Suran and immediately moved to the new capital would be caught off guard, and it would definitely be broken. In this way, the Sky Brood will gain. The biggest result of the battle was not only helping the Zerg solve Suran, a suspected threat from other powerful civilizations, but also clearing the new capital, an important human military stronghold. However, it really didn't do this, which is actually what Suran couldn't figure out. It's not just that Suran can't figure it out. What's more, when he was in Aodong City, Suran defeated the two sphere monsters head-on, and he always wondered why the Sky Brood didn't send anyone to exterminate him. Those two sphere monsters were able to chase all the way to Aodong City, which means that the insect nest has locked Suran as the target instead of the destroyer. In this case, it is confirmed that Suran is not dead. A howler is right, but there is nothing. Is it really stuck for some reason? But what else can trap them? That Sky Brood, but the strategic insect swarm army. In this season, wherever it appears on the earth is a nightmare existence. How could it be trapped in a wilderness? If there is something weird there, it might be the spore life, and the spore life has come to the new capital, and the spore life is so miserable. It is okay to deal with individual bugs, bullying humans. How can it affect a Sky Mother, a war legion with a nest as its core? So besides this, what else? Thinking of this, Suran suddenly choked up slightly because he suddenly thought of something previously, after the battle on the mountain road. They once said something that made Suran inexplicable. In order to join forces with Suran to fight against the Sky Brood, That was the reason why they were determined to deal with the Sky Brood. That bunch of stupid bugs have no idea what they're doing. We have to stop their stupidity. You should know this better than us. Could it be that the Sky Brood was trapped in a wilderness because of this stupid act? There is a huge risk hidden behind this act, so big that the spore life is determined to kill the Sky Brood immediately. That's right, this must be the case. Suran has always had doubts before. Why did the spore life not appear in the previous life? Let alone the scene of the spore life invading the new capital. What if it's not that the spore life doesn't want to appear or invade the new capital, but that they can't? Thinking of all these, Suran suddenly felt a creepy feeling. She felt that this piece of northeast land that she should be very familiar with suddenly became extremely terrifying, like an endless abyss that would kill anyone who set foot on this land. Everything is swallowed up. He even had some doubts whether the spore life was setting up a trap for himself to lead him into this dangerous zone. Li Ji, who was sitting opposite Suran, watched Suran's face change several times in just half a minute, and he didn't speak for a long time, and asked tentatively, "Mr. Su, what do you think about the current situation of the Sky Brood nest? Understand something?" These words brought Suran back to his senses slightly. He glanced at Li Ji, remained silent for a moment, and said, "It's nothing. I want to confirm one thing. I'm afraid I need your help." Li Ji said, "Whatever, you can just say it." Suran said, "Can you confirm what spore life intends to do with the new capital before we regain control of the new capital today?" This question stunned Li Ji for a moment. He thought for a while, and said, "May I know why you want to know this information?" Suran smiled and shook her head. "I'm not sure yet." Li Ji nodded and said, "Now we are taking over the military again. What was the order that spore life carried out in the new capital city before, is also one of the situations we are confirming, but I can't give you an accurate answer yet. I'm afraid it will take some time. Okay, I'm not in a hurry." Suran said, "Anyway, it seems that the Sky Brood can't threaten the new capital for the time being, so there's no need to worry about it, right?" Li Ji nodded. "Indeed, although this situation is very strange, it is indeed very good news for us." After thinking for a while, Li Jike said, "The current situation is roughly the same. The Sky Brood is indeed our goal. Their pause provides us with a huge buffer space. The Kyoto site is deploying reinforcements for us. Once the war starts, we will be able to. Our force may not be able to keep that Sky Brood on the northeastern land." When he said these words, Li Ji's eyes were burning and his expression was confident. Obviously, he had great confidence in the military's strength and believed that as long as he was well prepared, he would be able to contend with the Sky Brood as one of the world-class powers. China's military strength is unquestionable, and its huge population base is the strongest backing behind its powerful scientific and technological strength. As Yikijin said before, if they can fight back and forth with humans, no matter how powerful the Zerg seems to be, they will not be much stronger than humans. Human arms and armies cannot be underestimated. And when Li Ji said these words, he also showed his own force, a little childish, and didn't want to lose in front of alien creatures. "I'm also from Earth." "Okay bro." Of course Suran could hear the meaning of showing off, but he immediately said indifferently, "Is there a square near here?" Knowing that the Sky Brood could not be killed temporarily, Suran suddenly felt that he was a little too careful. Since this Major General Li Ji wants to show off his force, it's time to pull out a destroyer. Li Ji didn't know what Suran was thinking, so he asked curtly, "Why are you looking for the square?" Chapter 150 Confidence. Xinjiang has another name, called the City of Squares. Although there are some exaggerated elements in it, it also shows that Xinjiang has a large number of squares. There is a square near the cafe called Xingxing Plaza. Li Ji immediately satisfied Suran's request, but he never expected what Suran was going to do. Suran came to the relatively wide square, waved his hand near the flower bed, and unexpectedly summoned a spaceship. It was a destroyer, which had already been manufactured in the system, but it was delayed due to the pressure of the Sky Brood. Now Suran realized that he was worried about filtering before, so he released it, but this scene caused waves in Li Ji's heart. Sure enough, this guy still has powerful weapons and equipment in his hands. Moreover, although Li Ji had also made it clear in various reports that Suran seemed to have some kind of space storage technology, this was the first time he had seen it, and the shock in his heart was indescribable, as if he had seen it in novels and science fiction movies. The things that come alive are the same as in reality. Space storage technology. "I really want to try it." Childish thoughts welled up. Li Ji swallowed slightly, looking at the huge monster that appeared in front of him and almost crushed half of the square. He was speechless for a moment, only envious from the bottom of his heart. Such a black technology, If you can give me one. And as if guessing what Li Ji was thinking, Su Ran smiled in a very indifferent tone. Major General Li, this is just my basic model of spaceship. If our cooperation goes well, the insects you provide, if there are enough corpses, I can still give you one of the destroyers. Su Ran's words seemed to be a feeling of being an extraterrestrial creature, although Su Ran didn't know how he became an alien, but judging from the current situation, it seemed like a good choice to pretend. At least it would give him more initiative. However, what Su Ran said surprised and delighted Li Ji. The good news is that Su Ran is really willing to use such a black technology giant ship to exchange insect corpses, showing full cooperation. Sincerity. Li Ji knew a lot of information about the destroyer. Directed energy main guns, shield systems, anti-gravity engines, planetary accelerators, etc., are all black technologies among black technologies. If you can get such a destroyer, it will not only have huge combat power, it will also give them the opportunity to study these top technologies. What surprised me was the randomness revealed between the lines in Su Ran's words. Is this still a basic model of spaceship? He also needs a more advanced spaceship. Moreover, when it comes to exchanging a destroyer for insect corpses, it is so casual, just like exchanging a tractor for insect corpses, which means that such a powerful destroyer is not cared much by the other party. No wonder, the other party was extremely confident, and when he said he wanted to cooperate with humans, he had that look on his face at this moment. Li Ji's heart was full of waves, and he made up for Su Ran's randomness and arrogance before Li Ji stretched out his hand, shook hands with Su Ran, and said, Mr. Su, I'm already looking forward to working with you. Seeing this, the corners of Su Ran's mouth were also twitched. Did you just look worried of me? Why is it so cool now? Li Ji's eyes were heavy, looking at the destroyer in front of him, as if he had already imagined how such a behemoth fell into the hands of the military. I don't know if the technical department can overcome its technology, if it can destroy it one by one duplicate destroyers. In that case, however, it was Li Ji who showed such a look, and the staff behind him also looked forward to it. Then, Su Ran and Li Ji briefly talked about Su Ran's destroyer docking and operating in the airspace of the new capital, and after a few polite words, Li Ji left in a hurry. The Major General still has a lot of things to deal with. He came here specially to see Su Ran at this time. The most important thing is to confirm Su Ran's danger. Now that Su Ran was identified as an extraterrestrial life and the spore life was temporarily controlled, Su Ran naturally became another time bomb that everyone in the new capital was worried about, and Su Ran knew that even if Li Ji left, he would still send someone to watch him quietly. Su Ran didn't care either. He directly boarded the destroyer and slowly lifted off from the square. The huge destroyer, amidst the buzzing sound, rose to the sky above the new capital. Countless people have witnessed this scene with their own eyes. Soldiers from the military region looked up and saw the shadows covering the earth, and the steel sky fighters were rising inch by inch. What is that? Didn't you receive the order from your superiors? That is Su Ran's destroyer and Bingchen, a friendly army, and our helicarrier. At the same time, in the adjacent survivor section, a large number of survivors were surprised to see this scene. Oh my god, is that an alien warship? What fart? That must be the ultimate weapon of our mankind. On the main road from the survivor division to the military area, Li Yilin and others who were returning to the military area from the fourth area under the protection of the military happened to see the picture of the huge ship rising into the air through the window. Li Yilin watched the behemoth that was shot down in the northeast wilderness rise into the sky again, and she was so excited that it was hard to describe. And Xin Yu beside him also had sparkling eyes, watching the destroyer take off inch by inch. For many people in Bingcheng, Su Ran's destroyer means the hope of survival and has a symbolic meaning. But Yuan Lichen, who was sitting in the front row, had deep eyes, as if he had expected it, but a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he didn't know what he thought of. And in the other car behind, Lin Yuandong was in the car with his few remaining brothers. Those younger brothers were very excited. Boss, isn't that our destroyer? Oh my god, didn't it crash? Could it be that Mr. Su returned a destroyer? How did he change it out? Why didn't he tell us before? Boss, you are really amazing. Mr. Su is simply a potential stock among potential stocks. Recently, Lin Yuandong has been in a lot of embarrassment after fleeing for several days. At this time, he had a complacent expression on his face but did not want to show it. It's Su Ran's credit. If my analysis is correct, he must have put the new capital in order again. Do you know what this means to us? All the little brothers shook their heads when they heard that. You look at me and I look at you. Lin Yuandong waved his hands proudly, and said, it's time for us to recruit troops. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like, Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.